Chapter 3164. Sacred. Sacred leader is dead. He wasn't killed by Mo Qingyun. He was killed by Yun Luo. I didn't expect the scariest person in True Beginning Demon Hall to be Miss Yun Luo. True Beginning Demon Hall hid their strength too well. We were wrong. Lin Qingxuan and the others sighed when they saw Yun Luo kill Sacred Leader. Their emotions were complicated. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they wouldn't have thought that it would end like this. Compared to Lin Qingxuan and the others, Ing Wudi stood rooted to the ground, as if he had been petrified. He muttered to himself, "This can't be real. Sacred Leader has already broken through the limits of a great emperor. How could he die in her hands?" If Sacred Leader had been killed by Mo Qingyun, Ing Wudi would be in a better mood. However, he had died in Yun Luo's hands. This was undoubtedly a greater blow to Ing Wudi and the others. This girl is really wasteful. Mo Qingyun shook his head with a bitter smile when he saw Yun Luo use the sword Great Tao Origin to kill Sacred Leader. Even if Yun Luo hadn't attacked, he could have killed Sacred Leader and wouldn't have put Lei Muan in danger. Zhao Sun's and the others' emotions were clearly different from Mo Qingyun's when they saw Yun Luo kill Sacred Leader. At this moment, smiles of pleasant surprise appeared on their faces. They were extremely impressed by Yun Luo. "Miss Yun Luo, you're still the best. You actually killed Sacred Leader." "Yeah. I thought you were joking. I didn't expect you to have such a powerful trump card. We didn't recognize Mount Tai before. We asked you to forgive us." Zhao Sun's and the others were overjoyed as they flattered Yun Luo. Yun Luo looked at Mo Qingyun when she heard what Zhao Sun's and the others said. A sly smile appeared on her face. As Zhao Sun's and the others were talking, Mo Qingyun and Enchun walked over and stood in front of Ing Wudi and the others. Watching Mo Qingyun and the others approach, Lin Qingxuan and the others had complicated expressions on their faces. For a moment, they didn't know what to say. Lin Qingxuan looked at Mo Qingyun and couldn't help but sigh. "Mr. Mo, we let you down before. Please do it. I only hope that after you kill us you won't kill everyone in our sect." Mo Qingyun shook his head when he heard Lin Qingxuan's words. He said, "Lin Qingxuan, don't say something like that. Have you thought about sparing the disciples of the true Grand Primordium Devil Hall when you've joined forces to attack them? In order to save your lives, you did not hesitate to beg the Dark Demon race for mercy. This is truly despicable. From the moment you submitted to the Dark Demon race, we became irreconcilable enemies. You want me to spare your disciples? That's absolutely impossible." If Lin Qingxuan did not open his mouth to beg for mercy, Mo Qingyun would still respect him, but now he despised him. In order to survive, they could abandon all their principles. Why should he follow the rules? Do it. After scolding Lin Qingxuan, Mo Qingyun didn't say anything else. He immediately ordered Enchun and the others. Hearing Mo Qingyun's order, Enchun and the others all responded and attacked Lin Qingxuan and the others. "Mo Qingyun, you're cruel and tyrannical. There will be retribution in the end. You're the same as the Dark Demon race. You're both demons of the astral realm. I hate you so much. I can't accept this." Seeing Enchun and the others attack, Ma Bei and the others were unwilling to accept this. They spoke one sentence after another. Hearing Ma Bei and the others' words, Mo Qingyun sneered. He despised them to the extreme. In the past, he really didn't realize that Ma Bei and the others were so thick-skinned. Very soon, Enchun arrived beside Mo Qingyun and said, "Master, it's all dealt with. Should we send people to clean up the remnants of these sects?" Hearing Enchun's question, Mo Qingyun glanced at Zhou Jing and the others. He said, "Don't do anything for now. Wait for Senior Zhou and the others to recover before going to clean up the various sections." After saying that to Enchun, Mo Qingyun did not stay any longer. He quickly walked into the True Demon Hall. Seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, Lei Muan and the others hurriedly followed. They returned to the True Demon Hall together. When Mo Qingyun returned to the True Demon Hall, he looked around and pondered. He said, "The sect-protecting formation has been destroyed. We need to set up a new one. However, the previous one is still a little weak. We need to set up an even stronger one this time. Can we do what Zhang Yi said and merge the power of laws into the formation?" As soon as this idea appeared in his mind, Mo Qingyun decided to give it a try. He wanted to use this method to set up a formation. With that thought, Mo Qingyun went to find Jiang Feng and the others to discuss the matter of setting up the new formation. As for Zhao Sunce and the others, they all returned to their residences and made use of the time to recover. They were very heavily injured this time. They could not afford any delays. Not only that, but once they recovered, they still needed to clean up the remnants of the various sections. In the residences of Jiang Feng and the others. "Greetings, Mr. Mo." Jiang Feng and the others hurriedly went up to greet Mo Qingyun when they saw him. They bowed respectfully. The three of them were not strong enough to participate in the battle. However, after the sect-protecting formation had been destroyed, they had seen the battle between Mo Qingyun and the sacred leader clearly. They did not expect the young man in front of them to be able to overpower an expert who had surpassed the great emperor realm. No need to be so polite. Mo Qingyun waved his hand indifferently in response to their greetings. He said, "I'm here to discuss the matter of setting up the sect-protecting formation." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Jiang Feng said respectfully, "Mr. Mo, please tell us what you need. The three of us will do our best to complete it." Mo Qingyun nodded in satisfaction when he saw their attitude. He said, "I have some new ideas for setting up the sect-protecting formation this time. I'm going to change it." Jiang Feng and the others' expressions changed slightly. They looked at Mo Qingyun curiously, wanting to know how to change it. Mo Qingyun did not stop talking. He continued, "When I went to the Heaven Realm, I received guidance from a king-level divine array master. He pointed out the difference between a saint array and a divine array. I'm thinking about how to integrate the Great Path laws into the saint array. Could it evolve into a divine array?" Listening to Mo Qingyun's narration, Jiang Feng and the other two's faces were filled with shock. Even though Mo Qingyun's words were making the three of them dizzy, they didn't know what to say. But Mo Qingyun's idea made the three of them very tempted. If they succeeded, their attainments in formations might change qualitatively. This was a great opportunity for them. Whether they could become divine array masters or not might depend on this. Jiang Feng and the others became even more excited when they thought of this. Chapter 3165. Mr. Mo, when are we going to start setting up the formation? What do we need to prepare? Jiang Feng asked impatiently when he thought about the huge benefits he might reap from setting up a new sect-protecting formation. Under Jiang Feng's expectant gaze, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and said, "What kind of formations do the three of you specialize in? What materials do you need? List them out immediately. I'll go prepare them later." Upon hearing Mo Qingyun's question, Jiang Feng and the other two started to discuss what kind of formation to set up. The three of them discussed for a while and came to a conclusion. Jiang Feng said, "Mr. Mo, the level 9 formation that the three of us specialize in is the Scorching Sun formation. However, it's a powerful offensive formation, so it's not very suitable to be used as a sect-protecting formation. If it's used as a sect-protecting formation, the ice-splitting Thunderpool Sacred Formation would be more suitable. When activated, it would create ice seals and increase the defensive power of the formation." Jiang Feng listed out the two formations and listed out the materials needed for the two formations one by one for Mo Qingyun. Mo Qingyun nodded in understanding when he saw the materials needed for the two formations. He made a decision in his heart and said, "A sect-protecting formation would naturally focus on defense. The ice-splitting Thunderpool Sacred Formation would be more suitable." Furthermore, the attributes of the ice-splitting Thunder Pool Sacred Formation are compatible with the Thunder Pool Ice Phoenix. If it's used to control the formation, it would probably increase the power of the formation. With that thought, Mo Qingyun made a decision. He was prepared to choose the ice-splitting Thunder Pool Sacred Formation as the new sect-protecting formation of the true Absolute beginning Demon Hall. After choosing the sect-protecting formation, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and said, "However, we can also prepare the Scorching Sun formation. With one offensive formation and one defensive formation, its defensive power would be even stronger." Mo Qingyun made a decision. He didn't want to stay any longer. He got up and said to the three of them, "I'm going to prepare the materials for setting up the formation. I'll come find you tomorrow. The three of you can use this time to discuss and prepare properly." After Mo Qingyun finished speaking, he left the residence of the trio and rushed towards the Thunder Hall. He was going to look for Lei Muwen and get some materials from the sect's treasury to set up the sect's protective array. Very quickly, Mo Qingyun found Lei Muwen. She was in the middle of explaining the sect's affairs. The Sacred Lord had already been killed, and the Dark Devil race was about to be annihilated, so the true Absolute beginning Devil Palace was no longer in danger. In this way, she would also leave with Mo Qingyun and go to the Heaven Realm together. Seeing that Lei Muwen was giving instructions, Mo Qingyun did not interrupt and sat down quietly. Seeing that Mo Qingyun didn't say anything, Lei Muwen didn't ask any further and continued to instruct everyone. About 15 minutes later, after Lei Muwen finished explaining everything, she looked at Mo Qingyun and asked, "Qingyun, why are you looking for me?" "Yes." Mo Qingyun nodded and said, "Under the Sacred Lord's attack, the sect's protective array was destroyed. We need to set up another one. I just found Jiang Feng and the other two to discuss the sect's protective array. I need some materials to set it up. I came to find you to enter the sect's treasury and take out some materials to set up the array." Hearing the purpose of Mo Qingyun's visit, Lei Muwen nodded and said, "I'll take you there now." After Lei Muwen finished speaking, she got up and walked out of the hall. Mo Qingyun followed closely behind and left the meeting hall together. Before long, Mo Qingyun and Lei Muwen arrived at the treasury of the true Absolute beginning Devil Palace. The treasury of the true Absolute beginning Devil Palace was huge. After Mo Qingyun's search, it was filled with all kinds of cultivation resources. Take these pill refining materials. After entering the treasury of the true Absolute beginning Devil Palace, Missouri Qingyun saw some pill refining materials and put them away without hesitation. He had promised Ma Wenxing before that when he returned to the Star-Field realm this time, he would help him gather pill refining materials. Now that he saw them in the treasury, he naturally had to put them away and bring them back to the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace to hand to Ma Wenxing. After putting away some pill refining materials, Mo Qingyun picked out the formation materials and put them into his storage ring one by one. About 2 hours later, after some selection by Mo Qingyun, he had prepared all the materials needed for the two formations. In order to prevent any mishaps from occurring while setting up the formation, Mo Qingyun had prepared more in case of emergencies. After picking out the formation materials, Mo Qingyun did not leave immediately. Instead, he took out some cultivation resources and put them in the treasury of the true Absolute beginning Devil Palace. These cultivation resources were all obtained in the ancient demon cave and were of no use to him. Leaving them in the true Absolute beginning Devil Palace might be of some use. "Let's go." After settling everything, Mo Qingyun was unwilling to stay any longer. He walked out of the treasury. Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Lei Muwen nodded and followed him out of the treasury. "I still have to discuss with Father, so I won't accompany you to prepare the formation." Coming out from the treasury, Lei Muwen did not go with Mo Qingyun. Instead, she went to look for Lei Haoxuan to settle some matters. Emo Qingyun did not mind Lei Muan's actions and directly returned to his residence. I'd better go to the Fortune mainland to experiment. Back in his room, Emo Qingyun pondered for a moment, then entered the Fortune mainland in a flicker. Integrating Grand Tao Law into the formation was just one of his ideas. As for how to implement it, he still needed to ponder over it to determine if it was feasible. Inside the Fortune mainland, it was easier for him to operate the Grand Tao Law, and it was more convenient for him to verify his ideas. After entering the Fortune mainland, Emo Qingyun did not waste any time and immediately started to set up the formation. The formation Emo Qingyun set up was a simple low-grade formation, and he completed it very quickly. To verify if his idea was feasible, the grade of the formation was not important, as long as it was a formation. After setting up the formation, Emo Qingyun circulated his Genesis Supreme Law and integrated it with the formation. Bang! Just as the Genesis Supreme Law was integrated into the formation could not withstand the pressure and directly exploded. Seeing this, Emo Qingyun frowned, and a trace of shock flashed through his eyes. He had not expected that integrating Genesis Supreme Law into the formation would cause such a commotion. I integrated it too hastily just now, and the Genesis Supreme Law I circulated was too strong. Although his first attempt had failed, Emo Qingyun was not discouraged. He started to set up the formation again. Soon, another formation was set up, and Emo Qingyun tried to integrate Genesis Supreme Law into the formation again. Bang! Soon, the formation collapsed again, announcing that Emo Qingyun's attempt had failed once again. I failed again. Looking at the collapsing formation, Emo Qingyun frowned and thought, the formation was too stable this time, so when I integrated Genesis Supreme Law into it, it destroyed its balance and caused the formation to collapse. Emo Qingyun summed up his experience and rushed to set up the formation again, starting a new attempt and conclusion. In the following time, Emo Qingyun tirelessly set up the formation and summarized his experience. Chapter 3166. Time passed quickly, and a day passed in the blink of an eye. After a day of constant deliberation, Emo Qingyun finally grasped the gist of it, and successfully laid out a holy array that contained Grand Tao laws. Although I haven't fully grasped it, I should be able to lay out a grade 9 holy array if I carefully lay it out. Looking at the completed holy array in front of him, Emo Qingyun's lips curved into a faint smile. In a flicker, he left the Fortune mainland. Leaving the Fortune mainland, Emo Qingyun's footsteps did not stop, directly heading to Jiang Feng and the other two's residence. When Jiang Feng and the other two arrived, they were already waiting for Emo Qingyun's arrival. Mr. Emo, you're here. Shall we start now? Watching Emo Qingyun walk up to them, Jiang Feng respectfully saluted and inquired about Emo Qingyun's instructions. Hearing Jiang Feng's question, Emo Qingyun nodded and said, let's start now. Let's go. Emo Qingyun nodded and flew out from the three's residence, arriving in the air above the true absolute beginning Devil Hall. Standing in the air above the true absolute beginning Devil Hall, the three of them pointed at the true absolute beginning Devil Hall and said, Mr. Emo, yesterday, the three of us checked the sect's terrain, and have already chosen the core and base of the array. They are the Blue Frost Pond, the 9th Hall, and the 4 Mountain Peak. Listening to the three's report, Emo Qingyun nodded indifferently and said, You don't need to tell me the details of laying out the array. We'll divide the work. You three will lay out the array, and I'll integrate Grand Tao laws into the array. Don't waste time, let's start laying out the array. Where should we start? These are the materials for laying out the array, keep them well. As Emo Qingyun spoke, he passed the 2 array formation materials to Jiang Feng and the other 2. After receiving the array formation materials from Emo Qingyun, the 3 of them no longer hesitated and flew towards the Blue Frost Pond. Seeing the actions of the 3 people, Emo Qingyun also did not ask much and followed them to the Jadefall Frost Pool. Arriving above the Jadefall Wintry Lake, Jiang Feng said with a serious expression, "Young Master Mo, you said that the ice-rending Lightning Lake Saint Formation is controlled by the ice-rending Lightning Lake Saint Formation, and the formation I should be here. If there is any movement in the formation, the ice-rending Lightning Lake Saint Formation can sense it in time." Mo Qingyun nodded in agreement when he heard Jiang Feng's words. He said, "Do as you've thought. Begin setting up the formation." Jiang Feng and the other two nodded and didn't say anything else. They immediately set up the formation. It had been some time since the three of them had become level 9 Sacred Array Masters, so they were clearly more familiar with setting up arrays. Soon, the three of them began to imprint the materials on the formations in an orderly manner. As the formation materials were engraved with formation runes, they were inserted into every corner, emitting a shocking wave of formation energy. This formation is indeed very powerful. Just the initial stages of the formation are already emitting a shocking amount of cold power. Sensing the waves of formation energy, Mo Qingyun's expression was slightly surprised, but a satisfied smile appeared on his face. To him, the stronger the Glacial Thunder Lake Holy Formation was, the better. The stronger the defensive power of the Glacial Thunder Lake Holy Formation was, the more he would be assured of the safety of the true Demon Palace when he went to the Heaven Realm. Under Mo Qingyun's observation, Jiang Feng quickly set up the formation. He turned to look at Mo Qingyun and asked, "Mr. Mo, the formation is set up. Do you want to integrate the Great Path laws now, or later? Or wait until the entire formation is set up before you integrate the Great Path laws?" Hearing Jiang Feng's question, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and said, "Let's start integrating now. Even if there are any changes, we can correct them in time. Just in case something goes wrong with the entire formation and it takes too much time to set it up again." As soon as Mo Qingyun finished speaking, he moved in front of Jiang Feng and the other two and began to integrate the powerful formation with the Great Path laws. The Glacial Thunder Lake Holy Formation was a level 9 holy formation. It was different from the formations that Mo Qingyun had set up before. The process of setting it up was very complicated and troublesome. It would take a lot of time to set it up again. More importantly, the materials used to set up the Glacial Thunder Lake Holy Formation were also very rare. Currently, the materials used to set up the Glacial Thunder Lake Holy Formation in the True Demon Palace could only set up 3 layers. 3 chances. I hope there won't be any problems. Mo Qingyun took a deep breath. He didn't dare to be careless in the slightest. He was especially careful as he integrated the Great Path laws. Soon, a light pillar with a mysterious aura appeared in front of Mo Qingyun. Summoning the Great Path laws, Mo Qingyun controlled it and integrated it into the formation bit by bit. Seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, Jiang Feng and the other two's expressions all tensed up. At that moment, the three of them were completely focused as they watched Mo Qingyun integrate the Great Path laws. Sensing their expressions, Mo Qingyun said sternly, "The most crucial part of becoming a Divine Array Master is to comprehend the Great Path laws and integrate them into the formation. The three of you have a rather solid foundation in formations right now. What you lack is comprehending the Great Path laws. The level of the Great Path laws in the astral boundary realm is lower. It's easier to comprehend and use them. Focus on comprehending the Great Path laws in the next period of time. Once you've comprehended the Great Path laws, even if you haven't condensed them into Great Path laws, you can still try to integrate them into the formation." Hearing Mo Qingyun's explanation, Jiang Feng and the other two seemed to have been enlightened. The direction of their cultivation in the future suddenly became clear. Although it was just a matter of a sentence, they wouldn't have been able to comprehend it without Mo Qingyun's guidance. It would be extremely difficult to take this step. It felt like you were lost in endless darkness, unable to find your direction at all. However, if someone gave you a light, you would have a direction to walk in, and it would be easy to find the exit. Thank you, Mr. Mo, for your guidance. Jiang Feng and the other two were pleasantly surprised. At the same time, they were even more impressed with Mo Qingyun. At the same time, they were also glad that they had been rescued by Mo Qingyun back then. Fortunately, they had followed Mo Qingyun all this time. If they had chosen not to follow Mo Qingyun back then, they didn't know what would have happened to them. Mo Qingyun didn't respond to Jiang Feng and the other two's gratitude. He focused on integrating the Great Path laws into the formation. Although he had successfully integrated the Great Path laws into the low-level sacred formation he had set up previously, the formation was much more complex. However, the level of the formation was much higher, and the construction of the formation was much more complicated. It was much more difficult to integrate the laws of the Great Path. More importantly, Mo Qingyun's formation level was only equivalent to a level 7 Sacred Array Master. This was also his biggest shortcoming. If Mo Qingyun was a level 9 Sacred Array Master, it would be much easier to integrate the Great Path laws into the formation now. Boom! A loud sound was heard. Along with the loud noise, the formation instantly collapsed. As the formation collapsed, it also meant that Mo Qingyun had failed to integrate the Great Path laws into the formation. Chapter 3167. Seeing this, Jiang Feng and the other two were dumbfounded. They could not react for a long time. Did he fail to integrate the Great Path? Compared to the shock of Jiang Feng and the other two, Mo Qingyun was much calmer. He had seen this kind of scene many times. Mo Qingyun smiled faintly. No need to be surprised. This situation is very normal. My method of setting up the matrix is just another way and opportunistic. It is not the orthodox method of setting up a divine matrix. Therefore, it is normal for there to be various changes in the process of setting up the matrix. After listening to Mo Qingyun's explanation, Jiang Feng and the other two immediately understood. Immediately, they had a certain understanding of why Mo Qingyun had failed to integrate the matrix. If that was the case, then everything was easy to accept. Of course, this was also Mo Qingyun's fault. It was his fault for being too mysterious before. As a result, his image in the hearts of Jiang Feng and the other two suddenly became higher. In their opinion, since Mo Qingyun said so, integrating the Great Path into the matrix would definitely succeed. They did not know that Mo Qingyun had only tried this method for a day. What could be achieved in a day? If it were an ordinary person, they would not even be able to touch the threshold. It was already very rare for Mo Qingyun to be able to do this. In fact, the three of them had forgotten that even if they set up the matrix, they were not completely confident that it would succeed. After explaining the situation to the three of them, Mo Qingyun did not say much. He said to the three of them, "You guys set up the matrix eye again. When the matrix eye is set up, I will try again." After listening to Mo Qingyun's instructions, Jiang Feng and the other two did not delay at all and immediately set up the matrix. With the previous experience, it was undoubtedly much easier for Jiang Feng and the other two to set up the matrix eye again. Compared to the first time, the three of them saved nearly 1/3 of the time. Mo Qingyun was very happy to see this situation. This way, the efficiency would be much higher. "Mr. Mo, the matrix eye is set up." After setting up the matrix, Jiang Feng looked at Mo Qingyun and reported to Mo Qingyun. After hearing Jiang Feng's report, Mo Qingyun nodded and flew towards the three of them. Arriving beside Jiang Feng and the other two, Mo Qingyun did not waste any words and immediately began to merge with the Great Tao laws. With the previous experience, it was much easier for Mo Qingyun to make a move this time. Mo Qingyun avoided many of the wrong details, making the process much smoother. Slowly, the aura emitted by the formation eye became stronger and stronger. Sensing the change in the array eye's aura, Jiang Feng and the other two were shocked, their eyes wide open. What a powerful aura! The aura emitted by the formation core is at least 30% stronger than before. This is just the eye of the formation, and it's just the beginning. If it was complete, it would be even more amazing. Divine arrays are indeed powerful. Even pseudo-divine arrays are not comparable to sacred arrays. Jiang Feng and the other two were excited, and their faces were filled with anticipation. Clearly, the scene before them filled them with anticipation for the divine array master. Mo Qingyun did not pay attention to Jiang Feng and the other two's performance. He continued to focus on merging with the great Tao laws. Seeing that Mo Qingyun was still merging with the great Tao laws, Jiang Feng and the other two calmed down and did not disturb Mo Qingyun anymore. Next, time seemed to have stopped in the eyes of Mo Qingyun and the others. At this moment, their eyes were only focused on setting up the formation and merging with the great Tao laws. Unknowingly, an hour passed. After an hour of hard work, the merging of the great Tao laws into the formation core was finally completed successfully. Whoosh! After successfully merging the great Tao laws into the formation, Mo Qingyun took a deep breath and relaxed slightly. He thought to himself, "Looks like my analysis was correct. Next, there shouldn't be any problems merging with the great Tao laws in this way. You guys continue setting up the formation. After you're done, I'll merge with the great Tao laws." Mo Qingyun left right after he finished speaking. He did not speak much with Jiang Feng and the other two. In the hour just now, although he had only merged with the great Tao laws, he had consumed a lot of his spirit. He had to take advantage of this gap to recuperate and recover so that he could merge with the great Tao laws later. Seeing that Mo Qingyun had gone to recuperate, Jiang Feng and the other two did not hesitate and immediately continued setting up the rest of the formation. With the cooperation of the three, a formation was quickly set up. After setting up the formation, the three of them came to inform Mo Qingyun to merge with the great Tao laws. After a period of cultivation, Mo Qingyun's spirit that had been consumed was also recovered very well. Immediately, Mo Qingyun and the other three divided the work. Everything was carried out in an orderly manner. 5 days passed quickly just like that. After 5 days of hard work, the ice-splitting Thunder Pool sacred formation was finally completed. It emitted a shocking aura. Is this the pseudo-divine formation? It's really powerful. I'm afraid that the power of a real divine formation is only this powerful. Mr. Mo is really a genius. He's found a new way to set up a formation. Looking at the ice-splitting Thunder Pool sacred formation in front of them, Jiang Feng and the other two were impressed and exclaimed. Mo Qingyun did not care about the three's exclamations. He said calmly, "Everyone has worked hard these past few days. Go back and rest for a day. The day after tomorrow, we will continue setting up the Scorching Sun 9 Flames formation." Hearing Mo Qingyun's instructions, Jiang Feng and the other two responded and left immediately. In the past few days, they had only been setting up the formation and had not consumed as much energy as Mo Qingyun. However, their cultivation was not as profound as Mo Qingyun's. Therefore, they had also consumed a lot of energy and needed to recuperate well. After watching Jiang Feng and the other two leave, Mo Qingyun did not return to recover. Instead, he went to Enchen's residence. "Master." Seeing Mo Qingyun arrive, Enchen bowed respectfully. In response to Enchen's bow, Mo Qingyun waved his hand indifferently and said, "How's everyone's injury?" "It's fine now." Enchen gave an answer and said, "I was just about to go find you. Earlier, Zhao Sunce and the others came to ask me if they've recovered. When will they set off to wipe out the other sects?" Hearing Mo Qingyun's question, Mo Qingyun's expression relaxed slightly. His hanging heart relaxed. After some thought, Mo Qingyun said, "It just so happens that I've been setting up the formation recently. I'm still in the True Devil Hall. Wiping out the other sects during this period of time is not a bad decision. Otherwise, we'll have to stay in the True Devil Hall to wipe out the other sects once the formation is set up. Gather everyone immediately and set off to wipe out the other sects right now." Mo Qingyun left after saying that to Enchun. As for how to wipe out the other sects, Mo Qingyun did not care. He left everything to Enchun. To Enchun, wiping out a few declining sects was not difficult at all. Chapter 3168. After leaving Enchun's place, Mo Qingyun went straight back to his residence and immersed himself in cultivation and recovery. The Scorching Sun 9 Flames formation was also a level 9 Saint array. The difficulty of setting it up was not any lower than the ice-breaking Thunder Lake Saint array. Mo Qingyun did not dare to be careless. Therefore, he had to make the best use of his time to cultivate and recover to his best condition. While Mo Qingyun was cultivating and recovering, Enchun and the others set off to eliminate the remnants of the various sections. A day passed quickly. When the agreed time came, Jiang Feng and the other two arrived and waited for Mo Qingyun outside the courtyard. Because of their previous gains, they were a little impatient to set up the Scorching Sun 9 Flames formation. Mo Qingyun did not care about the thoughts of Jiang Feng and the other two. Instead, he was very satisfied with their positive attitude. Where is the array core of the Scorching Sun 9 Flames formation? Walking up to Jiang Feng and the other two, Mo Qingyun didn't waste any words and directly asked them. Hearing Mo Qingyun's question, Jiang Feng walked forward and said, "The three of us went back the day before yesterday and had a good discussion. We decided to use the fiery flame valley of the fire hall as the array core. Senior Xian Yang happens to live there and can better observe the array." Jiang Feng spoke his thoughts. Mo Qingyun thought for a moment, then nodded and said, "That's a good idea. We'll do as you say." Mo Qingyun and the others discussed and reached an agreement. They flew towards the fiery flame valley. Xian Yang was not in the valley. He had left with Enchun to eliminate the remnants of the other sections. "Let's do it." Standing in the air above the fiery flame valley, Mo Qingyun glanced at the valley and ordered Jiang Feng and the others. Jiang Feng and the others nodded and immediately set up the array. Everything was done with ease. Looking at Jiang Feng and the other two setting up the array, Mo Qingyun frowned slightly and thought, the way the Scorching Sun 9 Flames formation is set up is completely opposite to the ice-breaking Thunder Lake Saint array. Should I also change the method when I integrate the Great Tao? At this moment, Mo Qingyun had a bold idea. If he changed his method of integration, he would undoubtedly overturn all the previous conclusions and start all over again. Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and made a decision. He thought to himself, "Let's set up a low-level holy array first to verify my speculation. Even if it's wrong, there won't be too much loss." With this thought in mind, Mo Qingyun did not want to waste any more time and immediately set up the array formation. Seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, Jiang Feng and the other two looked over curiously. However, after a few glances, they retracted their attention. They could tell that Mo Qingyun was probably doing this to verify some conjecture. This was not of much help to the few of them. Moreover, their most important task now was to finish setting up the formation I. A moment later, Mo Qingyun stopped his verification and a look of understanding appeared on his face. He thought to himself, "It's just as I guessed. The attributes of the array formation are different and the way it integrates the Great Tao is also very different." He looked at Jiang Feng and the others and a sliver of anticipation appeared on his face. He said, "I hope I'm right. That way I'll be able to save a lot of trouble when I fuse with the laws of ways." While Mo Qingyun was thinking to himself, Jiang Feng and the other two finished setting up the formation I and looked at Mo Qingyun. Without waiting for Jiang Feng and the other two to report, Mo Qingyun moved and appeared in front of them. Immediately, Mo Qingyun urged the nomological law threads and integrated the Great Tao into the array formation. After the previous round of verification, Mo Qingyun now had a much easier time fusing into the Great Tao laws. Soon, Mo Qingyun successfully integrated the Great Tao into the scorching Sun Nine Flames formation. The smoothness of the entire process was far from comparable to setting up the ice-breaking Thunder Lake Saint Array. Let's continue. After completing the integration of the Great Tao, Mo Qingyun said something to Jiang Feng and the other two before he left. In the following time, Mo Qingyun and the other three set up the array formation as before. On the third day after Mo Qingyun and the other three set up the array, Chun and the others returned and wiped out the remaining members of the other sections. Not only that, but they also found the small world of the blood fusion lineage and massacred the members of the blood fusion lineage. Master, everything is settled. Chun came to Mo Qingyun and reported the results of the battle. He took out a few storage rings and said, "The things in here are all plundered from the various sections." After listening to Chen's report, Mo Qingyun nodded and took the storage rings. After taking the storage rings, Mo Qingyun released his divine consciousness and scanned the contents of the storage rings. After checking the storage rings, Mo Qingyun revealed a satisfied smile. The storage rings were filled with all kinds of rare and precious items. The foundations of these sects are indeed very terrifying. After putting away the storage rings, Mo Qingyun could not help but sigh. He thought to himself, "It's true that killing and robbing are golden belt. It's really fast to become rich by relying on this." Mo Qingyun sighed inwardly. He didn't think too much about it. Although doing this would allow him to gather resources as soon as possible, he did not care to do so. Of course, if someone provoked him, he would not show mercy. After reporting the results of the battle to Mo Qingyun, Chun frowned and said, "Master, when we were wiping out the various sects, we discovered a bad situation. Tell me about it." Hearing Chen's words, Mo Qingyun frowned slightly, and a curious expression appeared on his face. Chun nodded and said, "Although the remaining members of the sects have been completely wiped out, the small world of the blood fusion lineage of the Dark Demon clan and the people in the small world have all been killed. However, the blood fusion lineage is different from the plant lineage. Their bloodline does not come from the plant lineage, but from the fusion of yin and yang. During this process, many mixed-blood descendants of the Dark Demon clan appeared. These mixed-blood descendants of the Dark Demon clan were not all born in the small world of the blood fusion lineage of the Dark Demon clan. According to our observations, as long as it is a 3-star force or above, there are mixed-blood descendants of such forces in the entire star realm. Their attitudes are not clear. It's hard to say if they are loyal to the Dark Demon clan and will find a chance to revive the Dark Demon clan. However, if we kill them all, we will make enemies with the entire star realm. It will be a great disaster." After listening to Chen's explanation, Mo Qingyun nodded and said, "This is indeed troublesome. We have to think of a foolproof plan." Mo Qingyun thought for a while, but he could not think of a good plan. He waved his hand at Chun and said, "You have worked hard to wipe out the remaining members of the Dark Demon clan in the past few days. Go back and rest first. Once I set up the protective formation, I will discuss with you in detail." After listening to Mo Qingyun's instructions, Chun did not stay and left with a flash. After Chun left, Mo Qingyun frowned deeply. His mood became slightly heavy. If these mixed-blood descendants of the Dark Demon clan could not be dealt with properly, they would be a hidden danger to the true Devil Hall. Chapter 3169. A few days later. True Absolute beginning Devil Palace, inside the meeting hall. After Mo Qingyun finished setting up the formation, he gathered everyone here to discuss the matter of the Rong bloodline's descendants. Lei Haoxuan sat at the top of the main hall. He looked at Mo Qingyun on his left and said, "Qingyun, have you thought about how to deal with the issue of the blood fusion lineage's descendants?" Hearing Lei Haoxuan's question, Zhou Jing and the others tensed up and looked at Mo Qingyun. Under everyone's gaze, Mo Qingyun organized his thoughts and said, There are too many descendants of the Rong bloodline, and their relationships with many factions are not light. If we kill them all, unless we destroy these sects as well, it will be a serious disaster. The most important thing is that even if we kill them all, it will be difficult to do so. Also, I don't advocate too much killing. I suggest we expel them to a region and forbid them from leaving. It's equivalent to dividing the astral realm into two parts and using one part for them to live and lock them all up there. Hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Zhou Jing thought for a moment and raised his doubts. If we expel them to a region and let them develop freely, won't we be giving them a chance to rest and recuperate? What if they accumulate strength and break out of the prison and attack us again? Zhou Jing's worries were voiced and everyone nodded. They also had the same concerns. Emo Qingyun also agreed with Zhou Jing's words about the hidden dangers. He said, "There's no way to avoid this. At the very least, if we banish them to a certain area, they will appear in the open. This will be beneficial for our control and supervision. If you have any good suggestions, you can bring them up and let everyone analyze them together." As soon as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, Zhao Sun's continued, "Locking them up in a region is a good idea, but we can't just ignore them and let them rest and recuperate without any worries. I think that appropriate suppression is still necessary. We have to weaken their strength from time to time. I suggest that we open up a few huge battlefields around the area where they are being held, so as to slowly weaken their strength. If we do this, the younger generation on our side will also have the opportunity to fight and temper themselves." Hearing Zhao Sun's words, Zhuo Qinglong, who had already left the Fortune mainland, frowned deeply. "But won't that cause a lot of casualties? Will the people be plunged into misery and suffering?" Zhao Sun shook his head and said, "Where there are people, there will be conflicts. Even if the juniors don't fight against the blood fusion branch, they'll still fight against their own disciples. It's better to let them fight against the blood fusion branch. When they fight against the blood fusion clan, it can also increase their cohesion and deepen their bonds with each other. In addition, in the process of constant fighting, many outstanding junior leaders will appear, just like the cultivation of Gu. These people will be the future hope of their respective sects, and they will be the cornerstone of their future battles against the blood fusion branch." Hearing Zhao Sun's words, Anchun nodded and said, "Zhao Sun is right. Although it will increase the number of fights, there are also great benefits. Not only will it reduce the growth of the blood fusion branch's population, but it will also allow the juniors to temper themselves and increase the cohesion of the sections. As for the juniors who died, there is no need to care too much about them. Cultivation is a path that defies the heavens. The strong will survive, and the weak will be eliminated. This is the inevitable result. Even if they don't fight against the blood fusion branch today, in the future, when the blood fusion branch grows stronger, they will still come to kill them. It's just a matter of time." Hearing In Chen's words, no one had any objections and agreed with Zhao Sun's suggestion. "Since it's like this, it's decided." Although Emo Qingyun didn't want to cause a huge massacre, he agreed with Zhao Sun's suggestion. Zhao Sun's method seemed cold, but it was also a good method. It was just that the future slaughter would be shifted to the present. After deciding on how to deal with the second generation of the blood fusion branch, Emo Qingyun looked at Anchun and Zhao Sun and said, "Anchun, Zhao Sun, you will discuss with Senior Zhuo and Senior Zhou. Choose a region in the astral region and expel the forces with the blood fusion branch's descendant. If anyone disobeys, kill them all directly. Don't make any concessions." In Emo Qingyun's opinion, he had already made a big concession by not killing them directly. If they still didn't know what was good for them, then they couldn't blame him for being ruthless. "Yes." Hearing Emo Qingyun's order, Anchun and the others responded. Then, Anchun and the others left to deal with the blood fusion branch's descendants. After dealing with the blood fusion branch's descendants, Emo Qingyun talked about some other things before returning to his residence. After returning to his residence, Mo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. Recently, I've been delayed by various things and forgot about the fate-reversing samsara heaven-seizing pills. I should give them to Wuyo and the others. With this thought in mind, Mo Qingyun entered the Fortune mainland to look for Yi Wuyo and the others. When Mo Qingyun arrived, the women all welcomed him with joyful expressions. They surrounded him and asked about him with concern. During the conversation with the girls, Mo Qingyun sensed that their cultivation bases had improved significantly. Wang Zishu, who had the highest cultivation base, had already broken through to the World Lord realm and was steadily advancing towards the Emperor realm. Even Hong Fun, who had a weaker cultivation base, had entered the Celestial Domain grade. Her aura was very stable and she was about to break through to the Universe grade. After learning about the girl's cultivation situation, Mo Qingyun didn't beat around the bush and said directly, "When I went to the Heaven Domain this time, I obtained some pills that can improve one's talent. Each of you should take one. If nothing goes wrong, you should be able to cultivate to the God realm after changing your talent this time." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, the girls were excited and their beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation. Yi Wuyo said excitedly, "Qingyun, the God realm you're talking about, could it be the great God realm and above?" "Yes." Mo Qingyun nodded and said, "It shouldn't be a problem to cultivate to the great God realm. However, if you want to cultivate further, it will depend on your potential. Otherwise, you will have to find spiritual items that can change your talent. However, don't worry. If there's a chance, I will continue to look for various spiritual items to change your cultivation talent." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Mo Ling, who was the most considerate, said, "Qingyun, there's no need to rush to change our talent. You are only in the heavenly soldier realm now. After we take the fate-reversing reincarnation heaven-seizing pill and change our cultivation talent, we can already keep up with your footstep. We are already very satisfied with this. When the time comes, don't let us surpass you." Hearing Mo Ling's words, the few of them nodded in agreement and revealed satisfied expressions. They didn't dare to imagine that they could keep up with Mo Qingyun's footsteps. Chapter 3170. Qingyun, if you let us surpass you, you'll be embarrassed. Looking at the life-reversing reincarnation heaven-seizing pill in his hand, the straightforward Yi Wuyo patted Mo Qingyun's shoulder. "Let's work hard together and surpass Qingyun. Although it's not very possible, we still have to work hard." The other women beside him agreed. In a short period of time, the few women smiled sweetly, beautiful and charming. Looking at the few women's performance, Mo Qingyun felt helpless, but he was also very satisfied in his heart. In his opinion, at least he found a way to let the people around him have a chance to establish themselves in the heavenly world. It was no longer like before, when the people around him were troubled by the limitations of their talent and couldn't keep up with his cultivation speed. After fooling around with Mo Qingyun for a while, Mo Ling said to everyone, "It's not easy to surpass Qingyun. We have to race against time to cultivate. Let's go refine the pills." And, hearing Mo Ling's words, the few women nodded and returned to their rooms. In the blink of an eye, the few women ran away, leaving Mo Qingyun alone in the courtyard. Looking at the few women's actions, Mo Qingyun shook his head and walked out of the courtyard, saying, "There are still a few life-reversing reincarnation heaven-seizing pills left. Let grandfather deal with them. Choose to hand them to the rest of the family." Before long, Mo Qingyun passed the pills to Mo Hongtian and left everyone's room. However, Mo Qingyun didn't leave the Fortune mainland, but went to the Grand Mist Fog Sea. Now that his cultivation had increased greatly, he was prepared to explore the Grand Mist Fog Sea and head to a deeper place. "I wonder what kind of breakthrough I'll have in the Grand Mist Fog Sea this time?" Standing in front of the Grand Mist Fog Sea, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment, then jumped into the Grand Mist Fog Sea. After entering the Grand Mist Fog Sea, Mo Qingyun swam towards the depths of the Grand Mist Fog Sea. Because Mo Qingyun's strength had greatly increased, many Grand Mist spirits weren't able to react in time as he dove down. As a result, he passed by them. Of course, Mo Qingyun didn't try to capture these weak Grand Mist energies. Looking at the surrounding spirits of primordial chaos, Mo Qingyun came up with an idea. The spirits of primordial chaos in the primordial fog sea contain pure primordial chaos energy. If I were to refine and absorb them, not only would I be able to rapidly improve my cultivation, it would also change my physique. Before, everyone's cultivation was too low and we were unable to refine them for cultivation. In the future, when everyone's cultivation increases, we can hunt Grand Mist spirits for everyone to refine and absorb. Since everyone has refined the Grand Mist spirit, can it subtly influence their cultivation talent? At this moment, Mo Qingyun's heart was filled with a strong expectation. If his idea could be realized, the problem of everyone's cultivation talent would be completely solved. Just as Mo Qingyun was thinking this, he came up with another bold idea. If I were to directly refine and absorb them, the efficiency wouldn't be too high with everyone's talent and cultivation. If I were to refine the spirits of primordial chaos into elixirs, it should be easier for everyone to refine them. When I return to the heaven realm this time, I'll bring some spirits of primordial chaos to him and see if he can refine them into elixirs. While Mo Qingyun was thinking this, he also decided that it was necessary to pick up alchemy again. He had so many people around him and the demand for elixirs was huge. He couldn't possibly ask Ma Wenxing for help every time he refined elixirs. More importantly, he wouldn't be in the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace all the time. At that time, it would be difficult to find Ma Wenxing. Therefore, it would be most convenient for him to master alchemy by himself. While Mo Qingyun was thinking, he dove into the depths of the Grand Mist Fog Sea, reaching a depth of nearly 100,000 meters. This time, I'm much deeper than before. I'm actually at a depth of 100,000 meters. After calculating the depth of his depth, Mo Qingyun's lips curled into a satisfied smile. However, before Mo Qingyun could rejoice, he saw a shocking scene and was stunned on the spot. At the bottom of the Grand Mist Fog Sea, there was a faintly discernible door that seemed to lead to another place. That place was filled with immortal qi and there were countless spiritual objects of heaven and earth. It was like a holy land for cultivation. The primordial chaos energy in the Grand Mist Fog Sea seemed to be dissipating from that place. What exactly is the deepest part of the Grand Mist Fog Sea? Looking at the faintly discernible door of light, Mo Qingyun was slightly shocked and a strong sense of curiosity arose in him. He thought to himself, just some of the energy that is dissipating has formed the mysterious Grand Mist Fog Sea and produced the purest spirits of primordial chaos. If I cultivate there, what kind of effect would it have? Wouldn't I be able to travel 10,000 miles in a day? The more Mo Qingyun thought about it, the more shocked he became. He also became more and more curious about the palace at the bottom of the Grand Mist Fog Sea. Afterwards, Mo Qingyun continued to dive and advance in an attempt to approach the door of light. What made Mo Qingyun helpless was that as he continued to dive and advance, his body began to reach its limit. The density of the primordial chaos energy in the water increased, so the pressure from the water on him rapidly increased as well. With every 100 meters that Mo Qingyun advanced, the pressure would basically double. He was forced to stop. Looking at it right now, I need to be a God King at the very least if I want to approach the door of light. Mo Qingyun sighed inside as he looked at the distant door of light. He could not help but feel rather disappointed. With his current cultivation, he had no idea how long it would take for him to reach the Divine King realm. Although I can't approach the door of light, the primordial chaos energy here is so dense that it has given birth to many good things. Emo Chingyun looked around and discovered that there were many mysterious undersea plants in the depths of the Grand Mist Fog Sea. These undersea plants all exuded pure energy fluctuations. After a rough observation, Emo Chingyun discovered that the size of these undersea plants was extremely large. Some of the smaller undersea plants were dozens of meters long. Some were even 100 meters or 1,000 meters long. The energy purity of these undersea plants far surpasses that of ordinary spiritual objects. It should be good to harvest them and refine them into elixirs. With this thought in mind, Emo Chingyun swam towards one of the undersea plants and prepared to dig it up. This undersea plant looked a little like a kelp. It swayed freely at the bottom of the sea. What Emo Chingyun did not expect was that the kelp-shaped undersea plant would wrap around him as soon as he approached it. Hiss! Not only that, but when the kelp-shaped undersea plant wrapped around him, its body split up rapidly and turned into a huge demonic snake. What shocked Emo Chingyun the most was that the demonic snake formed by the kelp-shaped undersea plant was extremely powerful. Heavenly Soldier Realm. The strength of every part of its body is comparable to a top Heavenly Soldier Realm. When he saw this, Emo Chingyun hurriedly activated the 100 Battle Sky splitting armor to resist the attack of the kelp-shaped undersea plant. Then, the body of the kelp-shaped undersea plant clung onto the 100 Battle Sky splitting armor frantically. Chapter 3171. Asterisk bang bang bang. Asterisk a series of loud noises rang out. The kelp plant crashed into the 100 Battle Heaven splitting armor and Emo Chingyun felt a tyrannical force battering his body. Emo Chingyun immediately borrowed the force of the impact and retreated out of the kelp plant's attack range. After Emo Chingyun retreated out of the kelp plant's attack range, the kelp plant's body began to merge back, returning to its harmless appearance. That was close. I didn't expect these undersea plants to be so dangerous. Seeing this scene, Emo Chingyun was slightly startled and felt a lingering fear. He rejoiced. I originally thought that the Grand Mist spirits in the Grand Mist Sea didn't possess any offensive capabilities. I didn't expect that I had misunderstood. Fortunately, I have the 100 Battle Heaven splitting armor. Otherwise, that attack would have been enough to seriously injure me. Emo Chingyun clearly sensed that the kelp plant's attack had already reached the level of a heaven general. A seemingly harmless kelp plant actually possessed the fighting strength of a heaven general. Just thinking about it was terrifying. Knowing the strength of the kelp plant, Emo Chingyun didn't provoke it again. He switched to a weak-looking seaweed. This seaweed was different from ordinary seaweed. It covered a wider area and its hair seemed to be longer. With his previous experience, Emo Chingyun didn't relax or be careless as he approached the seaweed. He was afraid that this seaweed would be even more dangerous and possess even more terrifying strength. Asterisk asterisk as Emo Chingyun carefully approached, the originally ordinary seaweed suddenly shrank back. It looked a little like a starfish that had encountered danger and shrank back. When the seaweed curled up its body, the fine hairs on its body shot towards Emo Chingyun at an extremely fast speed. Not good. Seeing the seaweed's fine hairs shoot towards him, Emo Chingyun was greatly alarmed and his expression immediately changed. While Emo Chingyun was alarmed, the flying hairs of the seaweed continuously bombarded the 100 Battle Heaven splitting armor. Immediately after, Emo Chingyun was struck by an even stronger force that directly blasted him out of the sea. After being blasted out of the Grand Mist Sea, Emo Chingyun was sent flying for another 10,000 meters before he slowly stabilized his body. What a terrifying attack! As he recalled the power displayed by the seaweed, Emo Chingyun was so frightened that he broke out in a cold sweat. He felt as if his soul had left his body. The moment he met Emo Chingyun, it was as if he had walked through the gates of hell and experienced a reincarnation. Great Celestial! That seaweed was actually a great celestial being. After learning about the seaweed's strength, Emo Chingyun was shocked, unable to recover from his shock for a long time. While Mo Qingyun was still in shock, the puzzlement in his heart intensified. That seaweed was clearly smaller and seemed even more harmless. Why is it like this? Mo Qingyun leaped and returned to the primordial mist sea with a strong sense of confusion. After returning to the Grand Mist Sea, Mo Qingyun's body didn't stop moving as he quickly dived to the bottom of the sea. Before long, Mo Qingyun arrived at the bottom of the sea again. He was not far from some underwater plant. Let's try another one. Mo Qingyun calmed himself down as he looked at the underwater plants all around him and started to choose a new target. Mo Qingyun scanned his surroundings and found a new target. It was a weak-looking seaweed. The seaweed was less than a meter long and it swayed along with the flow of the water at the bottom of the sea. No matter how he looked at it, it didn't seem dangerous. It was just an ordinary seaweed. You're the one. Mo Qingyun gritted his teeth and swam towards the seaweed. When he was 10 meters away from the seaweed, Mo Qingyun stopped in his tracks and didn't approach it rashly. With the previous 2 experiences, Mo Qingyun had already discovered that 10 meters was a warning zone. Once he got within 10 meters, the underwater plants would sense it and launch a terrifying attack on him. Clang! When Mo Qingyun was 10 meters away from the seaweed, the sound of a divine sword being unsheathed came from in front of him. Following that, Mo Qingyun saw an ordinary grass fly out from the bottom of the sea. When the grass flew out of the sea, its body bloomed with light like a jade sword. Heavenly god realm. When the grass came out from the bottom of the sea, it released its aura, pressuring Mo Qingyun to the point of suffocation. Sensing the grass's aura, Mo Qingyun was speechless and had the urge to cry. Why did it seem that the more ordinary something was, the stronger it was? This was too deceptive. Seeing the grass slash towards him, Mo Qingyun didn't dare to hesitate and immediately turned to flee towards the sea. Bang! When Mo Qingyun turned to flee, the grass slashed forward and erupted with a terrifying power of law. The eruption of this power of laws was like a violent hurricane, causing massive waves to rise up on the calm seabed. Immediately, this wave-like sword light crushed down on Mo Qingyun. So strong! Sensing the aura of the wave-like sword light, Mo Qingyun was so frightened that his expression twitched and cold sweat broke out on his forehead. Although he had fought with a divine king realm ghost god before, that was because of the isolation of the array. His feelings weren't real. The situation in front of him was different. There was no isolation between him and the grass. A heavenly soldier realm cultivator being attacked by a heavenly god realm powerhouse. Just thinking about it made him feel excited. Bang! Although Mo Qingyun's escape speed was fast, it couldn't compare to the wave-like sword light. Soon, he was swallowed by the sword light. Mo Qingyun was engulfed by the wave-like sword light, and he was directly blasting out of the primordial mist sea from the bottom of the sea once more. This time, Mo Qingyun flew backward for a very long distance, directly flying out of the primordial mist sea. After a short while, when Mo Qingyun stabilized his body, he was already far away from the primordial mist sea, stopping on a huge mountain peak. Mo Qingyun stabilized his body. He revealed an expression of lingering fear and said in surprise, "Indeed, the more ordinary the underwater plant, the more powerful the strength it possesses. This kind of disguise is too deceptive. To block that sword attack from the jasper grass earlier, I had to use up 3 million heaven crystals. This jasper grass is too scary." One had to know, blocking a divine king's all-out attack also expended 10 million heaven crystals. This was also to say that the grass's strength was close to half-step divine king level. Fortunately, it's not divine king level. Otherwise, my 100 battle heaven-rending armor would be scrap. Mo Qingyun felt lingering fear and rejoiced in his heart. Although he expended more than 3 million heaven crystals, it was still within his acceptable range. expending 3 million heaven crystals to figure out the rules of the underwater plant's strength was also very worth it. If he expended 10 million heaven crystals and the 100 battle heaven-rending armor was also scrapped, he would really want to cry but have no tears. Since I'm clear about their rules, the rest will be much easier. Now that he knew how to distinguish the strength of the underwater plants, he did not hesitate at all and jumped into the primordial mist sea once more. This time, entering the primordial mist sea, he was going to get it back with interest. Chapter 3172. Soon, Emo Chinyun returned to his original spot and saw the kelp plants, seaweed, and jasper grass not far away. Knowing how terrifying they were, Emo Chinyun did not provoke them. Instead, he began to look for new target. I have to choose a bigger seabed plant. Emo Chinyun looked around and searched for a new target. After some observation, Emo Chinyun found a new target. It was a huge sea tree. This sea tree was 10,000 meters tall, and its trunk needed dozens of people to encircle it. The aura it emitted was overwhelming. This is the aura of a godly king? It might be even stronger. Could it be a godly emperor? Sensing the aura of the huge sea tree, Emo Chinyun felt a little weak and did not dare to attack it. It would be strange if Emo Chinyun did not panic when he attacked a seabed plant that was stronger than a godly king. Although Emo Chinyun had proven that the more ordinary and small the underwater plant looked, the more powerful it would be. However, Emo Chinyun had not verified the conclusion that the bigger the seabed plant, the weaker it was. If Emo Chinyun guessed wrong, the consequences would be severe. For example, the huge tree in front of him had an aura comparable to a godly emperor. If Emo Chinyun attacked it, wouldn't he be courting death? Should I attack or not? Looking at the huge seabed tree in front of him, Emo Chinyun was hesitant and could not make a decision. Nothing ventured, nothing gained. Emo Chinyun hesitated for a moment. Then, he gritted his teeth and snorted. Let's go all out. These seabed plants in the primordial fog sea cannot be analyzed using normal logic. This huge seabed tree looks powerful, but it might be a paper tiger with an empty aura. At this thought, Emo Chinyun did not hesitate and swung his sword at the huge seabed tree. This time, he was very straightforward. He did not probe and attacked directly. With a swing of his sword, a demon shadow flew out and pounced at the huge seabed tree. Pung! The demon shadow slammed into the huge seabed tree and immediately exploded it. It was like squashing an ant. Not long after, the huge tree at the bottom of the sea collapsed and merged into the primordial mist sea. It's gone? Looking at this scene, Emo Chinyun was dumbfounded and couldn't recover for a long time. He had thought of many possibilities, but he had never thought that it would end up like this. Although the tree had been obliterated, Emo Chinyun was not disappointed. He smiled resplendently. Although Yao Ying has obliterated the tree with a single slap, it at least proves that the more powerful a plant is, the weaker it is. Now that Emo Chinyun's guess had been confirmed, he could finally put his heart at ease. This way, he could choose his targets with peace of mind and hunt them down. Immediately after, Emo Chinyun's gaze swept the surroundings as he searched for a new target. After a while, Emo Chinyun's gaze landed on a huge coral. This coral was about 100 meters long and dozens of meters wide, much smaller than the giant tree at the bottom of the sea. However, compared to the jasper grass, seaweed, and other plants at the bottom of the sea, this coral was still very large. The aura of a heavenly god. When he arrived near the coral, Emo Chinyun sensed a powerful aura from the coral. With the experience of the giant tree at the bottom of the sea, Emo Chinyun already had a certain level of immunity to the aura of the coral. The stronger the aura of the underwater plant, the weaker it would be. Moreover, even if the coral was a heavenly god, he had no need to be afraid. A heavenly god-level coral couldn't break through the defense of the 100 battle heaven-splitting armor. He could still survive if he wanted to. After probing a few times, Mo Qingyun had already discovered the characteristics of these underwater plants. These underwater plants were different from demonic beasts. They usually didn't move away from the place where they grew. As long as you left their attack range, they wouldn't continue to pursue you. According to the analysis of the situation, this coral's true strength should be at the heavenly soldier realm. Looking at the coral in front of him, Mo Qingyun thought and estimated the strength of the coral. He discovered that if the size of the underwater plants didn't increase by 10 times, their strength would drop by 1 level. For example, the 1-meter jasper grass was close to the strength of a divine king. The seaweed that was 10 times his size was at the great god realm. The seaweed that was 10 times bigger was even weaker and was equivalent to the heaven general realm. The last giant tree at the bottom of the sea was 10,000 meters tall and 10,000 times bigger than the jasper grass. Its strength was estimated to be at the Sector Lord realm. The giant tree at the bottom of the sea was only at the Sector Lord realm. Facing the attack of the Heaven General Realm demonic shadow, it was naturally smashed into pieces. It's just a huge plant. They are so weak. Why is their aura so powerful? Recalling the aura of the giant tree at the bottom of the sea, Mo Qingyun was even more puzzled. This situation was very strange. Mo Qingyun thought for a while and couldn't figure out the reason. He shook his head and stopped thinking about it. Let's kill this coral first. Mo Qingyun threw away the distracting thoughts in his mind. He swung the divine 9-bull sword and slashed at the coral. Soon, a wolf with a shocking aura flew out from the divine 9-bull sword. Sensing the demonic shadow approaching, the coral immediately twisted its body to defend against the demonic shadow's attack. The coral moved its body and lifted a huge rock and threw it at the demonic shadow. Bang! The demonic shadow's palm hit the huge rock, and there was a huge explosion, creating a terrifying force. But what surprised Mo Qingyun was that the huge rock in the coral's hand didn't show any signs of cracking after receiving the demonic shadow's attack. This rock isn't simple. Looking at the rock in the coral's hand, Mo Qingyun was shocked and curious about the rock. The demonic shadow's strength was comparable to the Heaven General Realm. It was impossible for an ordinary rock to withstand its attack without any damage. The rock didn't shatter, but cracks appeared on the coral's body. The demonic shadow's attack contained a terrifying force that exceeded the limits of its body. It really is the Heaven Soldier realm. Seeing the coral's reaction, Mo Qingyun nodded in understanding and smiled faintly. Since the demonic shadow was at the Heaven Soldier realm, he wouldn't hold back. Then, Mo Qingyun's figure flashed as he charged towards the coral at the bottom of the ocean. Although these plants were strong, they hadn't developed intelligence and were very clumsy in battle. Thus, Mo Qingyun and the demonic shadow worked together and easily killed the coral. Crack, 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 as the coral was killed, it turned into a crystal and shattered into a drop. The coral fell to the ground and the aura it gave off also disappeared. Seeing this situation, Mo Qingyun frowned, and a disappointed expression appeared on his face. Chapter 3173. Could it be that when these underwater plants are killed, their power will quickly dissipate? Looking at the scattered corals on the seabed, Mo Qingyun looked disappointed and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. If that was the case, wouldn't killing these underwater plants be tantamount to wasting his efforts? Mo Qingyun sighed softly and walked to the stone that the corals had picked up. There seemed to be something wrong with this stone. It's so heavy. After picking up the stone, Mo Qingyun was shocked and became even more curious about this stone. However, after looking at the stone for a while, Mo Qingyun still couldn't figure out what it was. It seems that the origin of this stone is indeed somewhat unusual. Seeing that he couldn't figure out anything, Mo Qingyun put away the stone and thought to himself, when I return to the heavenly realm, I'll look for Lu Fengyi or Brother Tang to have a look. With their eyesight they might be able to figure out something. After putting away the stone, Emo Chingyun didn't want to stay any longer and prepared to hunt other underwater plants. Hey, what's this? When Emo Chingyun was about to leave, a little blood light in the pile of corpses on the seabed attracted his attention. Seeing that little blood light, Emo Chingyun immediately squatted down and pushed away the corpses of the corpses on the seabed. Soon, a drop of blood that emitted a bewitching light appeared in front of Emo Chingyun. It was a drop of blood with a very restrained but powerful aura. This is the blood of the heavenly god. Looking at the blood in front of him, Emo Chingyun instinctively thought in his heart. Although he had never seen the blood of the heavenly god, he could sense the aura of this drop of blood and naturally came to this conclusion. Recognizing the blood in front of him, Emo Chingyun's expression was overjoyed. He immediately put it away and said, "I didn't expect to get a drop of the heavenly god's blood after killing a coral. This is really an unexpected harvest." Thinking of this, Emo Chingyun's heart was filled with anticipation and he prepared to hunt other underwater plants. Roar, when Emo Chingyun put away the heavenly god's blood, the originally calm seabed plants in the surroundings suddenly became violent. Then, Emo Chingyun saw the seabed plants violently rushing toward him. What's going on? Seeing the island's plants go crazy, Emo Chingyun didn't think too much and immediately swam towards the outside of the primordial fog. He knew very well that this was not the time to think about these things. That was because he saw that the jasper grass from earlier was also approaching him. Emo Chingyun quickly left the primordial fog sea and stood in midair above the primordial fog sea. Emo Chingyun had gained some experience from his previous escape. As long as he left the primordial fog sea, those underwater plants would not chase after him. Is it because of the heavenly god's blood? Recalling the situation of the underwater plants, Emo Chingyun speculated in his heart. Emo Chingyun pondered for a moment before escaping back into the sea to verify his conjecture. Sure enough, as soon as he entered the sea, the undersea plants went crazy. Having obtained such a result, Emo Chingyun came to a realization. He thought to himself, "It seems that the reason these underwater plants are chasing me is indeed because of the heavenly god's blood." After confirming his thoughts, Emo Chingyun stored the heavenly god's blood into his storage ring. There shouldn't be any problems now. After transferring the heavenly god's blood, Emo Chingyun jumped into the primordial fog sea again and prepared to continue hunting the underwater plants. However, what surprised Emo Chingyun was that even after transferring the heavenly god's blood, the underwater plants still chased after him. Seeing this, Emo Chingyun didn't dare to stay any longer and immediately left the primordial fog sea. After escaping the pursuit of the underwater plants once again, Emo Chingyun looked down at the primordial fog sea and thought to himself, "It seems that it's not realistic for me to hunt the underwater plants in the short term." Since he could no longer hunt the underwater plants, Emo Chingyun didn't stay any longer. He turned around and flew towards the outside of the primordial fog sea. Not long after, Emo Chingyun left the primordial fog sea and sat down on a secluded mountain peak. What a powerful and pure energy! After taking out the heavenly god's blood, Emo Chingyun looked expectant. He thought to himself, "I wonder how my cultivation will improve after I refine the heavenly god's blood?" With this thought in mind, Emo Chingyun didn't waste any more time and immediately started refining the heavenly god's blood. A pure saint energy shot out from Emo Chingyun's body and enveloped the heavenly god's blood. Immediately after, Emo Chingyun began to refine the heavenly god's blood and absorb the energy it contained. However, to Emo Chingyun's surprise, when he was extracting the energy from the heavenly god's blood, he encountered a great obstruction. How strange! Why can't I refine this drop of blood? What's going on? Seeing that he had failed to refine the heavenly god's blood, Emo Chingyun was puzzled and his mind spun quickly. At the same time, Emo Chingyun released his divine thought and carefully observed the heavenly god's blood. In the process of observing the heavenly god's blood, Emo Chingyun couldn't help but think to himself, cultivation really can't be done behind closed doors. It's much easier to have a guide. If Brother Chu was here, he could just casually point at me and the doubts in my heart would be solved. Although Mo Qingyun thought so, he didn't give up refining the heavenly god's blood. After a while, after Mo Qingyun's observation, he discovered that there was something wrong with the heavenly god's blood. It was different from ordinary blood. This drop of heavenly god's blood seems to be made up of rule threads. After some observation, Mo Qingyun discovered the abnormality of the heavenly god's blood. He had a clear understanding of it and thought to himself, it seems that refining and absorbing the heavenly god's blood isn't just about refining the energy it contains. Compared to the energy it contains, the rule threads it contains are probably the real precious part. With this thought in mind, Mo Qingyun didn't waste any more time and continued to refine the heavenly god's blood. Although refining the heavenly god's blood's rule threads could not become his, it could be stored in the body. Once encountering danger, it could be activated to kill the enemy. It was equivalent to a celestial deity realm powerhouse's all-out attack. This would be a powerful trump card to Mo Qingyun. Although it was just a celestial deity realm powerhouse's attack, if this trump card was used well, celestial deity realm powerhouses would similarly suffer a loss. In the following time, Mo Qingyun refined the heavenly god's blood bit by bit, refining the rule threads contained in it. What surprised Mo Qingyun a little was that after refining the heavenly god's blood's rule threads, he had many new comprehensions in his comprehension of great Tao laws. Immediately, Mo Qingyun clearly felt that his rule threads were becoming stronger. Sensing his body's transformation, Mo Qingyun was pleasantly surprised and said, well deserving of being heavenly god's blood, its value is indeed extraordinary. Marveling in his heart, Mo Qingyun became even more engrossed in refining the heavenly god's blood. Time passed very quickly. In a twinkle, it was 10 days later. After 10 days of non-stop cultivation, Mo Qingyun finally refined the heavenly god's blood. Following refining the heavenly god's blood, Mo Qingyun withdrew from cultivation and started to perceive the gains of this cultivation. Chapter 3174. Late-Stage Heavenly Soldier Realm. After sensing his cultivation, Mo Qingyun revealed a satisfied smile. As expected of the heavenly god's blood. Even though it doesn't contain much energy, it has greatly improved my cultivation. However, compared to the improvement of my cultivation, the greatest gain this time is the strengthening of the nomological thread. With a thought, Mo Qingyun summoned his nomological threads and suspended them in front of his body. Compared to before, the nomological thread's length had increased by 1/3 and their thickness had also increased by nearly a fold. Now, the nomological thread's length had reached 130 meters, and their diameter was about the same as an ankle. More importantly, Mo Qingyun discovered that an obvious crack had appeared on the nomological thread. This was a sign that the nomological threads were about to split. Once the nomological threads split, they would become two nomological threads. Mo Qingyun's strength would undergo a qualitative leap. At that time, it wouldn't be difficult for him to confront a heavenly general realm powerhouse head-on. More importantly, the nomological threads contained in the heavenly god's blood were still preserved in Mo Qingyun's body. Once the nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood were activated, even if he encountered a heavenly god powerhouse, he would be able to kill them before they could react. Putting away his nomological threads, Mo Qingyun summoned the nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood with a thought. When the nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood were summoned, they exuded an astonishing aura, giving Mo Qingyun a kind of pressure. Just from the aura alone, the aura of the nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood is comparable to Yun Luo's sword Great Tao Origin. Looking at the nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood in front of him, Mo Qingyun made a rough estimation of its power. Immediately, Emo Qingyun revealed a curious expression as he carefully sized up the nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood. The nomological threads of the heavenly god's blood were completely different from ordinary nomological threads. It was different from Emo Qingyun's nomological threads and the dragon claw blazing sun leopard's nomological threads. It looked very slender. Every nomological thread was as thin and soft as a spider web, as if it would break with a touch. What a strange law thread! Looking at the Empyrean god's blood law threads before him, Emo Qingyun was somewhat puzzled. He thought to himself, didn't Lu Fengyi and the others say that the larger the law threads, the more powerful they will be? Why are the threads of laws in this drop of heavenly god's blood in such a form? What is going on? Emo Qingyun thought hard for a while, but couldn't find the answer, so he stopped thinking about it. With his current level of cultivation, it was obviously unrealistic for him to understand things at the heavenly god level. Forget it. I'll ask Lu Fengyi and the others when I return to the heaven realm. With that in mind, Emo Qingyun cast aside the distracting thoughts in his head. He looked at the sea of mist and said, just a single droplet of the god's blood has made my strength skyrocket. If I have a few more droplets, I'll be able to break through to the heaven general realm in an extremely short amount of time. After that, Emo Qingyun carried a strand of strong anticipation as he entered the primordial mist once more. Now that Emo Qingyun's strength had increased greatly, the pressure he felt when he entered the sea of mist again was clearly less than last time. Before long, Emo Qingyun arrived near the jasper grass and prepared to find a new target. However, what shocked Emo Qingyun was that before he could kill the underwater plants went berserk again. Very soon, Emo Qingyun saw a large group of underwater plants madly attacking him. What's going on? I've already refined the Empyrean god's blood. Why are they still so irritable that they want to kill me? Seeing the frenzied underwater plants, Emo Qingyun's face was filled with shock and confusion. The behavior of these underwater plants was really too abnormal. Although he was very puzzled, Emo Qingyun did not hesitate and immediately swam towards the sea of mist. Before long, Emo Qingyun left the sea of mist and got rid of the underwater plant. It seems like it's not realistic to continue hunting underwater plants. Recalling the situation just now, Emo Qingyun felt a little disappointed and decided not to continue hunting underwater plants. Then, Emo Qingyun flew out of the sea of mist, preparing to leave the Fortune mainland. On the way out of the sea of mist, Emo Qingyun thought to himself, it's been more than 10 days since I entered the Fortune mainland to cultivate. I wonder how Enchern and the others are doing? With this thought in mind, Emo Qingyun left the sea of mist and left the Fortune mainland in a flicker. After leaving the Fortune mainland and returning to his room, Emo Qingyun's footsteps did not stop as he rushed towards Lei Dian. He wanted to find Lei Muan to ask about the sect's current situation, as well as Enchern and the others' progress. Not long after, Emo Qingyun arrived at Lei Muan's residence and found Lei Muan chatting with Lei Haoshuan. Lei Muan had just reunited with Lei Haoshuan, but she had to leave with Emo Qingyun and head to the heavenly world. She couldn't help but feel a strong reluctance to part with Lei Haoshuan, so she often spent time with him. Qingyun, you're here. Come and sit here. Seeing Emo Qingyun's arrival, Lei Haoshuan smiled faintly and greeted Emo Qingyun. Emo Qingyun nodded at Lei Haoshuan's words and sat down beside Lei Muan. Qingyun, your cultivation has broken through. Sensing the change in Emo Qingyun's aura, Lei Muan was shocked. Her eyes widened as she stared at Emo Qingyun. She had broken through to the Emperor realm before Emo Qingyun, but Emo Qingyun had actually reached the Holy Emperor realm before her, which was the late-stage Heavenly Soldier realm. There were some unexpected gains this time, which allowed my cultivation to advance a step further. Hearing Lei Muan's question, Emo Qingyun nodded. He did not hide anything and said, I can sense your aura fluctuations, it seems like you're about to break through soon. Lameuan nodded and said, "If it weren't for the heavenly world, I would be preparing to enter seclusion to break through to the Holy Emperor realm." Imo-Chinyon nodded in agreement with Lameuan's thoughts and asked, "While I was in seclusion, how is the matter of expelling the descendants of the Blood Merge family going?" "The progress is quite smooth. The location of the expulsion has been chosen." Hearing Imo-Chinyon's question, Lameuan replied with a faint smile, "It's just that some of the descendants of the Blood Fusion faction are hiding very well, and there are signs of escaping. I'm afraid it won't be easy to completely expel them." After learning the general situation from Lameuan, Imo-Chinyon nodded and said, "It's impossible to completely expel them. This is inevitable. Since they're unwilling to cooperate, then don't let them go. Immediately give the order to kill them. I'm going to find Churn now to see the specific situation. You stay and accompany father-in-law." After Imo-Chinyon finished speaking, he moved and left Lameuan's residence. From Lameuan's words, he could tell that the expulsion didn't go smoothly. Since that was the case, he had to go and take a look. Chapter 3175. Firegrave Starfield. A huge flying ship was flying over at an extremely fast speed and landed on an abandoned continent. "Mr. Imo, you're here. Master, you've made a breakthrough? Congratulations, Mr. Imo. Your cultivation has improved." As soon as the airship stopped, several figures flew over and bowed to the young man on the airship. The young man on the airship was naturally Imo-Chinyon. Imo-Chinyon nodded indifferently in response to everyone's congratulations. He put away the airship and said, "How's the situation? How many sects with descendants of the blood fusion progeny haven't been expelled?" Hearing Imo-Chinyon's question, Chen's expression turned serious. He said, "Based on the current situation, nearly 90% of the forces with descendants of the blood fusion progeny have moved here. Of the remaining 10%, some are making their last stand, and some have gone into hiding." Within Chen's report, Imo-Chinyon had a clear understanding of the current situation. It seemed that the situation was not bad. Only a small part of the forces had not been dealt with. "If that's the case, it's going well." Imo-Chinyon nodded. He looked at Firegrave Starfield and said, "This place is not bad. There are endless fiery spatial rifts on both sides. If we want to seal them here, we only need to guard the two sides. This way, it'll be much easier to guard this star field." After Imo-Chinyon finished speaking, he looked at Zhou Jing and the others and said, "How do you plan to deal with the two sides?" Imo-Chinyon was about to leave the star field, so only Zhou Jing and the others could guard it. Sealing two sides of a star field was not an easy task. It required a lot of manpower. Therefore, before Imo-Chinyon went to the celestial world, he had to figure out how to guard it. Otherwise, if Zhou Jing and the others were careless, it would be a waste of effort to expel the descendants of the blood fusion progeny here. Hearing Imo-Chinyon's words, Zhou Jing thought for a moment and said, "I plan to move the Four Seas Warring Heavenly Hall here to guard a direction of Firegrave Starfield. Zhou Qinglong is in another direction." He rebuilt the Azure Dragon Holy Palace and used it to guard the other direction. Imo-Chinyon nodded in satisfaction after hearing Zhou Jing's answer. He said, "If the two of you are in charge of guarding the place, it will be much safer. However, a star field is too big. Even if you move your sect here, you won't be completely safe." Zhou Jing and the others didn't refute Imo-Chinyon's statement. That was indeed the case. Their sects were built on the continents and could prevent the descendants of the fusion bloodline from escaping from the continent. However, they had no way to stop the endless starry sky that the continents saw. This was a huge difficulty. Soon after, everyone fell silent, thinking about how to solve this problem. Imo-Chinyon thought for a moment and said, "If we want to completely seal them off, we will have to build a wall around Firegrave Starfield. It won't be an ordinary wall either. Only then can we completely seal them off." We will leave some space between these walls as a battlefield for the juniors of our sex to gain experience. Zhou Jing and the others' eyes lit up when they heard Mo Qingyun's words. They felt that this was a very good idea. However, as soon as they were excited, they put on a helpless look and said, "Building one wall is a good idea. Fire Grave Star area is too big. Even if we only build 2 walls, it will be a huge project. More importantly, what kind of wall can we build to seal them off?" Mo Qingyun wasn't surprised by Zhou Jing's words. He said calmly, "I'm going to cultivate a wall of array formations. I'm going to combine all kinds of array formations to surround Fire Grave Star Field and seal them off like a wall. When the time comes, we just need to send some people to guard the formation. We won't have to worry about them escaping. The difficulty of guarding will be lowered to the extreme." Chen and the others were shocked when they heard Mo Qingyun's words. They all widened their eyes in shock. Mo Qingyun's idea was too shocking. Not to mention how powerful the formation was and how many materials were needed to set it up. The number of formation masters who would come to set it up would be a terrifying number. Zhou Jing smiled bitterly and said, "Mr. Mo, your idea is very good, but it's too difficult to implement." Mo Qingyun didn't care about Zhou Jing's distress at all. He said, "Although it's difficult to implement, the results are worth a try. Order the formation masters of each sect to gather here. I will instruct them to set up the formation." "Okay." Seeing Mo Qingyun's insistence, Zhou Jing and the others stopped persuading him and immediately summoned the formation masters. Seeing that Zhou Jing had given the order, Mo Qingyun didn't think too much about it. He said, "If there are any other sects that don't want to obey, take me to them immediately." Hearing Mo Qingyun's order, Chen and the others didn't hesitate at all. They immediately led the way for Mo Qingyun. Then, Mo Qingyun controlled the heavenly god-level flying boat and took everyone to those sections. About an hour later, Mo Qingyun and the others arrived at a sect. They stood in the air above the sect and emitted their auras into the sect. Sensing Mo Qingyun and the others' auras, the sect leader and elders immediately flew out of the sect. "Greetings, Mr. Mo Seniors." Seeing Mo Qingyun and the others arrive, the sect leader immediately bowed respectfully. Zhuo Qinglong waved his hand indifferently at the sect leader's bow. He said, "Sect leader Yang Ling, what do you think? Give us an answer." Upon hearing Zhuo Qinglong's words, Yang Ling put on a troubled expression and said, "Senior Zhuo Qinglong, if it were any other matter, I would definitely not refuse. However, please forgive me for not being able to comply with your request to relocate the sect. This is the foundation of our sect. If I move the sect, won't I be letting down our ancestors?" Seeing Yang Ling's attitude, Zhuo Qinglong's face turned cold and he was slightly angry. He said, "Sect leader Yang Ling, if you refuse, it won't do you any good." Yang Ling didn't back down in the face of Zhuo Qinglong's displeasure. He said, "Senior, I know how powerful you are, but I'm not afraid of death. Unless you step over my dead body, I won't move the sect." After Yang Ling finished speaking, he raised his head and looked at Zhuo Qinglong as he wanted to kill him. Seeing Yang Ling's reaction, Mo Qingyun sneered and said with a disdainful expression, "If you really don't want to be killed, why did you abandon your sect and seek refuge in the Anti-Demon Alliance when the Plant Blood tribe attacked?" Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Yang Ling was speechless. He didn't know how to answer. Chapter 3176. After Mo Qingyun's reminder, everyone remembered that when the Dark Demon Race's Plant Blood progeny attacked, Yang Ling had led his disciples to hide in the Anti-Demon Alliance. In this way, Yang Ling's claim that they couldn't move their sect was nonsense. When everyone thought of this, they felt a strong sense of disdain towards him. Their gazes towards him were filled with extreme disgust. This guy's skin was really thick enough. Mo Qingyun sneered when he saw that Yang Ling was at a loss for words. He continued, You don't want to move now because you think that Saint Emperor Zhuo Qinglong is a humble person. He won't kill you. That's why you're not afraid of enraging him or any serious consequences. When Emo Qingyun said this, Yang Ling's expression changed and he looked a little guilty. In his heart, he had indeed thought of this before. Zhuo Qinglong snorted when he saw Yang Ling's reaction. He looked displeased and said, Yang Ling, you're too naive. Even if I won't attack you, it's hard to say what will happen to the others. Besides, Emo Qingyun came to talk to you just to pass on a message. Senior Zhuo, there's nothing to say to this kind of guy who bullies the weak and fears the strong. Seeing Zhuo Qinglong's disappointed expression, Emo Qingyun comforted him and looked at Yang Ling coldly. The Dark Demon race is the biggest threat to the Star Area realm. You don't want to move your sect after having the blood progeny in your sect. You obviously want to protect the blood progeny and allow them to harm the Star Area realm again. Sects like yours are the scourge of the Star Area realm. We can't let you live. Seeing Emo Qingyun's attitude, Yang Ling immediately panicked. He looked terrified and begged, Mr. Emo, we were wrong. We'll move our sect immediately. There was a world of difference between Yang Ling's current performance and his previous one. Soon after, everyone looked at him with even more disdain. Just as Emo Qingyun said, this guy bullied the weak and feared the strong. He was a typical example of a wretch. It's too late. Emo Qingyun didn't give in to Yang Ling's begging. He ordered Unchurn, do it. Yes. Hearing Emo Qingyun's order, Unchurn responded and attacked Yang Ling and the others. When he ordered Unchurn to attack, Emo Qingyun sent him a soul sound transmission and asked him to keep 1 or 2 people alive. Leaving a few alive for them to escape would allow them to send a message to the other sections. This would serve as a warning to the others. No, in the face of Unchen's overbearing attack, Yang Ling didn't even have time to react before he was struck by a large palm. Yang Ling died soul, he died, Unchen's. Seeing Yang Ling being killed by Unchen, the other people all revealed terrified expressions. They all turned around and fled for their lives. Unchen snorted coldly in response to those people fleeing for their lives and began to chase after them. However, Unchen let's kill two killed Yang Ling and the others killed Yang's. After killing Yang Ling and the others, Unchen flew to the sect and slaughtered the others. In just a moment, no one was left alive in the sect. They were all killed by Unchen. Let's go. Emo Qingyun didn't stay after dealing with the people in this sect. He was ready to go to the other sections. Zhuo Qinglong and the others continued to lead Emo Qingyun to the sects that didn't cooperate. Under Emo Qingyun's strong attitude, some sects were scared and obediently accepted the expulsion. As for those who didn't cooperate, they were all killed by Emo Qingyun. Time passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, 3 days had passed. After 3 days of cleaning, the sects that didn't cooperate were all dealt with. After dealing with these sects, Emo Qingyun and the others returned to the Firegrave Star Zone and prepared to set up the formation wall. During these 3 days, many formation masters came to the Firegrave Star Zone. They were waiting for Emo Qingyun's instructions. In order to support Emo Qingyun in setting up the formation wall, the sects took out a lot of materials and sent them to the Firegrave Star Zone. To them, sealing the dark demons forever was what they wanted to see the most. If Emo Qingyun could really do it, it would be worth it for them to spend some materials to set up the formation. These sects are smart. They took the initiative to send the materials. Although the grade isn't very high, there's a lot of them. They'll be useful. We can see where they stand from this. With these materials, the problem of the shortage of materials has been alleviated. Zhuo Qinglong and the others smiled when they saw the materials sent by the other sections. Emo Qingyun was also surprised by the situation. He nodded with satisfaction. Mr. Emo, almost everyone is here. When do we start setting up the formation? Jiang Feng walked up respectfully when he saw Mo Qingyun and asked about Mo Qingyun's arrangements. When he heard Jiang Feng's question, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and said, "How many Saint Formation Masters are there? How's everyone's formation skills?" Jiang Feng answered, "Since low-level Saint Formation Masters aren't very useful, Saint Formation Masters below the 6th level weren't called. Even so, there are still 13,920 Saint Formation Masters who admitted defeat. Among them, there are 17 Saint Formation Masters at the 9th level, 403 Saint Formation Masters at the 8th level, 3,200 Saint Formation Masters at the 7th level, and 10,300 Saint Formation Masters at the 6th level." Mo Qingyun was surprised when he heard Jiang Feng's report. He thought, "I didn't expect the number of Saint Formation Masters to exceed 10,000. With 10,000 Saint Formation Masters working together, the efficiency will be very fast. Perhaps it won't take long to set up the formation wall. It's not convenient for 10,000 people to work together. The 11 Saint Formation Masters at the 9th level will each lead a team and go to different positions to set up the formation." After receiving Mo Qingyun's instructions, Jiang Feng and the others immediately responded and left with their teams. After instructing Jiang Feng and the others to set up the formation, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and said to Zhuo Qinglong and the others, "Senior Zhuo Qinglong, you guys arrange some people to protect the formation wall so that they won't meet with any mishaps during the process." Saint Formation Masters didn't have high cultivation. If they were ambushed while setting up the formation, the consequences would be very serious. More importantly, if they were killed, it would affect the speed of setting up the formation wall. After hearing Mo Qingyun's instructions, Zhuo Qinglong and the others immediately went to arrange for people to protect the Saint Formation Masters. After hearing Zhuo Qinglong's instructions, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and had an idea. There are still too few advanced Saint Formation Masters. Perhaps I can use the Gate of Reincarnation to revive some advanced Saint Formation Masters. With that thought, Mo Qingyun didn't waste any more time and immediately revived some Saint Formation Masters. Chapter 3177. Array Masters generally didn't have high cultivation bases. Therefore, it wasn't particularly difficult for Mo Qingyun to resurrect them. After 5 days of tirelessly resurrecting sacred Array Masters, Mo Qingyun had resurrected more than 30 level 9 Sacred Array Masters. This was more than 3 times the number of level 9 Sacred Array Masters he had previously gathered. This situation shocked everyone. As a result, the number of level 9 Sacred Array Masters had reached close to 50. With the addition of more than 30 level 9 Sacred Array Masters, the speed of setting up the array formations immediately increased to a whole new level. With close to 50 level 9 Sacred Array Masters working together, we have enough manpower to set up the array formations. Mo Qingyun nodded in satisfaction as he watched the people setting up the array formations. Then, he flew towards an array formation that had already been set up. Although these array formations had been set up, their power was only at the level of an ordinary level 9 Sacred Array Master. It would be somewhat difficult for them to trap a great Emperor powerhouse. Therefore, Mo Qingyun wanted to strengthen them and increase their power to a whole new level. Although array formations that had been integrated with Great Path nomological laws couldn't be compared to divine arrays, they were still at the level of pseudo-divine arrays. If an ordinary Great Monarch Realm expert were to accidentally enter it, he or she might die instantly. With his previous experience, Mo Qingyun was clearly much more proficient in integrating Great Path nomological laws than before. Mo Qingyun didn't need to expend much effort to integrate Great Path nomological laws into the array formations. Based on this trend, it will probably take me about 6 hours to successfully integrate an array formation. Mo Qingyun frowned slightly as he calculated his integration time. There are at least a few thousand array formations surrounding the Fire Grave star domain. Even if there aren't 10,000 array formations, it will take me at least a few thousand. Completing one in 6 hours will take me a long time to integrate all of them. This can't go on. I have to think of a solution to speed up my integration. Mo Chingyun did some calculations. 6 hours for one array formation meant that he could only integrate less than 10 array formations a day. If there were thousands of array formations, it would take him several years to completely integrate all of them. A few years was too long for him. More importantly, spending a few years to set up the array formations was simply a waste of time. As Mo Chingyun thought about this, he became even more anxious to increase his speed. At this moment, Mo Chingyun urged the great Tao nomological laws and integrated them into the array formation. What surprised him was that his nomological threads had actually become stronger. My law threads seemed to be splitting. Sensing the situation of the law thread, Mo Chingyun was startled and felt an intense joy. Once his law threads split apart, he would be able to fuse them into the array formation, which would double the speed. Under Mo Chingyun's anticipation, his law thread successfully split, turning from one into two. Seeing the nomological threads split apart, Mo Chingyun had a flash of inspiration. He had a bold idea. He thought to himself, my nomological threads are merging too slowly. If I activate the Empyrean God's blood nomological threads, will the efficiency be higher? With this thought in mind, Mo Chingyun did not waste any more time and immediately tried it out. Although doing this would consume the law threads of the heavenly God's blood, he did not care too much. Although the law threads of the heavenly God's blood were equivalent to an attack from a heavenly God powerhouse, they were not very useful to him. He had the 100 battle sky-splitting armor to protect him, so heavenly gods could not hurt him. Therefore, the chances of using the law threads of the heavenly God's blood were not very high. More importantly, if he really needed it, he could also head to the Primordial Mist Sea and continue hunting underwater plants. Although he was unable to go deep now, Mo Chingyun believed that he would definitely be able to go in again after a long time. With a thought, Mo Chingyun urged the law threads of the heavenly God's blood and integrated them into the array formation. The integration speed of the law threads of the heavenly God's blood was much faster than Mo Chingyun had expected. In comparison, the integration speed of the law threads of the heavenly God's blood was dozens of times faster than his law thread. In just a short while, he had successfully integrated them into an array formation, causing the array formation's power to increase several times. As expected of the law threads of the heavenly God's blood, seeing the array formation's power after being strengthened, Mo Chingyun was startled and revealed a pleasantly surprised smile. For him, the stronger the array formation after integrating great Tao laws, the more at ease he would feel when leaving the star boundary. Shortly after, Mo Chingyun worked hard like this, integrating the law threads of the heavenly God's blood into the array formation. 5 days passed quickly. After 5 days of integration by Mo Chingyun, the law threads of the heavenly God's blood were exhausted. Mo Chingyun looked helpless when he saw that the sky God's blood law thread had been exhausted. He sighed and said, without the sky God's blood law thread, the fusion speed will be greatly reduced. Fortunately, there are not many array formations left. Even if I use my own law threads, it won't take long to integrate them. In these 5 days, Mo Chingyun used the law threads of the heavenly God's blood to integrate a total of several thousand array formations. In the following time, Mo Chingyun used his law threads to continue integrating them into various array formations. Another 10 days passed like this. After half a month of hard work, the array formation wall Mo Chingyun imagined was finally successfully constructed. Mo Chingyun revealed a satisfied smile as he looked at the formation wall before him. He said, with the protection of this formation wall, it's impossible for them to escape. unless they escape through a spatial crack. However, it'll be difficult for them to come out alive once they enter a spatial crack. Seeing that the array formation wall was complete, Mo Qingyun was unwilling to waste any more time. He prepared to return to the True Demon Hall. Afterwards, Mo Qingyun went to find Zhou Jing and the others and bid them a simple farewell. Knowing that Mo Qingyun was about to leave, Zhou Jing revealed a reluctant expression. He said, "Mr. Mo, I don't know when we'll meet again after this farewell." Zhuo Qinglong also sighed emotionally when he heard that. He said, "Mr. Mo, I'm afraid I won't be able to repay your kindness in this life. If there's a next life, I'll definitely repay your kindness even if I have to work like an ox or a horse." Mo Qingyun shook his head with a faint smile when he heard what the two of them said. He said, "You're too serious. The two of you are the heroes of the astral boundary realm guarding this place. You've resolved everyone's worries. With the two of you here, I can go to the heaven realm without worry. There's no need to worry about the safety of the True Demon Hall. I should be the one thanking you." Zhou Jing and Zhuo Qingyun shook their heads when they heard Mo Qingyun's words. They both revealed ashamed expressions. They knew that Mo Qingyun was just comforting them. With the strength of the True Demon Hall, they would need to protect it. After chatting with the two of them, Mo Qingyun did not stay any longer. He summoned the God-tier flying vessel. Afterwards, Mo Qingyun brought Xian Yang and the others back to the True Demon Hall. Chapter 3178. On the way back to the True Absolute Beginning Devil Hall, Mo Qingyun didn't bring those resurrected Saint Array Masters along. Although the formation wall was set up, he had also integrated the Great Tao laws into it to strengthen it. But as time passed, or if it was attacked, the formation wall would also show signs of breaking. Once the formation was damaged, people would need to cultivate. Mo Qingyun left those formations behind so that when the formation wall encountered problems, they could repair it in time. In addition, the construction of the battlefield also required the formation to stabilize, and those formation masters were needed. Lastly, Zhou Jing and Luo Feng also needed them to set up the sect protection formation when they were building the sect. Therefore, it was very necessary to leave those formation masters behind. Although those formations weren't brought back, Jiang Feng and the other two had followed them back. With the three of them in the True Absolute Beginning Devil Hall, all the problems with the array formations of the True Absolute Beginning Devil Hall could be easily solved. Half a day later, Mo Qingyun controlled the Heavenly God grade flying ship and arrived in the True Absolute Beginning Devil Hall, heading straight for the Thunder Hall. When Mo Qingyun arrived at the Thunder Hall, wind and lightning gathered in the sky above the Thunder Hall, exuding a terrifying aura. Seeing such a situation, Mo Qingyun was delighted and said excitedly, "Muan's cultivation is about to break through to the Saint Emperor level." Breaking through to the Saint Emperor level was also breaking through to the late-stage Heavenly Soldier realm. Seeing Lei Muan's situation, Mo Qingyun went to her residence and wholeheartedly guarded her breakthrough. While guarding Lei Muan, Mo Qingyun thought to himself and said, "I wonder how long it will take for the Luai's Ice Phoenix's cultivation to break through to the Heavenly General realm." If the Luai's Ice Phoenix's cultivation didn't break through, Mo Qingyun was still a little worried about leaving the astral boundary and heading to the Heavenly realm. Only when the Luai's Ice Phoenix broke through to the Heavenly General realm would the True Absolute Beginning Devil Hall truly have nothing to fear in the astral boundary. Boom! Boom! While Mo Qingyun was thinking, an even stronger gust of wind and lightning appeared in the sky above the Jadefall Frosty Lake. Seeing this, Mo Qingyun's expression froze for a moment before he revealed a pleasantly surprised smile. From the looks of it, the Luai's Ice Phoenix was about to break through and enter the Heavenly General realm. He's actually about to break through. He really knows how to choose the right time. Seeing the movement above the Azure Frost Lake, Mo Qingyun smiled faintly and arrived above Lei Muan's residence. Arriving at the sky above Lei Muan's residence, Mo Qingyun called out the law threads to resist the wind and thunder above the azure frost lake. The commotion caused by the thunder ice phoenix's breakthrough was too great. If he didn't stop it, it might affect Lei Muan's breakthrough. When Mo Qingyun tried to isolate himself, An Chen's figure moved and appeared beside Mo Qingyun. Immediately after, he also released law threads to help Mo Qingyun isolate himself. With An Chen's help, Mo Qingyun was much more relaxed, and he was able to isolate even more movements. After about an hour, Lei Muan's line breakthrough ended. Lei Muan's breakthrough was a small realm, so she didn't spend much time. The Luai's Ice Phoenix's situation was the opposite. Not only did its movements not weaken, but they became stronger and stronger. From the looks of it, once the Luai's Ice Phoenix's cultivation base breaks through, its strength will definitely increase by a lot. Looking at the Luai's Ice Phoenix's breakthrough, Mo Qingyun revealed a shocked expression and said something surprising. Of course, while Mo Qingyun was shocked, he was more surprised and expectant. The stronger the Luai's Ice Phoenix was, the safer the absolute beginning true Devil Palace would be with it overseeing the place. The Luai's Ice Phoenix's breakthrough lasted for several hours before the commotion above the Azure Frost Lake subsided. As the Luai's Ice Phoenix's breakthrough disappeared, Mo Qingyun and Lei Muan's expressions relaxed and retreated from the Azure Frost Lake. When Mo Qingyun and Lei Muan retreated, Lei Muan had already finished her cultivation and stabilized her realm. Qingyun, everything has been settled. Shouldn't we set off now? Lei Muan came out of her cultivation and came to Mo Qingyun. She asked Mo Qingyun. Hearing Lei Muan's question, Mo Qingyun nodded and said, "Because of the blood fusion lineage's descendant, we have been delayed for too long. It is indeed time to set off for the heaven realm." Mo Qingyun thought for a moment. He immediately found Lei Haoshuan and passed the 9-bull divine sword to him. "Father-in-law, this sword is not of much use to me now. I will leave it to you. With this sword, even if you meet a heaven general realm expert, you will be able to resist a bit." Mo Qingyun's current battle strength was comparable to a weak heaven general realm expert. The 9-bull divine sword was indeed not of much use to him. More importantly, when he reached the heaven realm, he could find Lu Fengyi to forge a divine sword for him. Lei Haoshuan was different. He only had the strength of an emperor realm expert. With the 9-bull divine sword, his battle strength would multiply. More importantly, leaving the 9-bull divine sword to Lei Haoshuan would make Mo Qingyun feel more at ease. Following that, Mo Qingyun and the others chatted for a while before they set off on their journey to the heaven realm. A few hours later, Mo Qingyun came to the space crack and called out the heaven-sealing purple lightning bell, enveloping everyone inside. With the previous experience, Mo Qingyun was much more proficient in using the heaven-sealing purple lightning bell to pass through the space crack. But what surprised Mo Qingyun was that An Chen showed a pained expression when he entered the space crack. Looking at him, it seemed like he was hit by some kind of mysterious force that suppressed his body and soul. "An Chen, your aura is very chaotic. I'll send you to the Fortune continent immediately." Sensing that something was wrong with An Chen, Mo Qingyun did not delay and immediately sent him to the Fortune continent. As An Chen entered the Fortune continent, his aura stabilized and gradually calmed down and returned to normal. Sensing that An Chen had returned to normal, Mo Qingyun was curious and asked, "What happened just now? Why did your aura suddenly become chaotic, as if your body was about to explode?" "I'm not too sure about the details." An Chen shook his head. He thought about it for a moment and said, "If I'm not wrong, my cultivation might have surpassed a certain limit when I passed through the spatial crack, and I suffered a backlash from the power of the heavenly ways." After hearing An Chen's words, Mo Qingyun nodded in understanding. He roughly understood in his heart. Originally, crossing the space crack was not something that could be done casually. There were many requirements. The reason why he did not feel it was because his cultivation was not enough and he had not touched that limit. No wonder the big dog was so angry at that time, but it did not chase into the space crack. Mo Qingyun now understood why the dragon claw fierce sun leopard was guarding here and did not enter the space crack. So there was such a reason. After chatting with Enchun for a while, Mo Qingyun controlled the heaven-sealing purple lightning bell and flew towards the space crack in the heaven realm. Chapter 3179. Coming out of the spatial crack, Mo Qingyun activated the 100 battle heaven-splitting armor to guard against the dragon claw fierce sun leopard's sneak attack. What surprised Mo Qingyun was that he didn't see the dragon claw fierce sun leopard when he came out of the spatial crack. That big dog isn't here? Not sensing the dragon claw fierce sun leopard's presence, Mo Qingyun's eyes flashed with surprise, but he didn't let his guard down. The dragon claw fierce sun leopard was a great god realm expert. If it were to hide in the dark and launch a sneak attack, the consequences would be terrifying. Let's go. Looking around vigilantly, Mo Qingyun made sure that the dragon claw fierce sun leopard wasn't around. Only then did he and Lei Muan set off. Soon, Mo Qingyun and the other two were far away from the spatial crack. The dragon claw fierce sun leopard still didn't chase after them. Seeing the situation, Mo Qingyun's expression relaxed slightly. He was sure that the dragon claw fierce sun leopard wasn't around. Knowing that the dragon claw fierce sun leopard wasn't around, Mo Qingyun knitted his brows and couldn't help but guess, that big dog isn't around. Could it be that we scared it away last time, and it doesn't dare to return? Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Yunluo blinked her beautiful eyes and said, "That's very possible. Although the brute demon race's intelligence is far inferior to our wisdom demon race, they aren't fools. It suffered a great loss last time. How would it dare to find trouble this time? Unless it's tired of living." After hearing Yunluo's words, Mo Qingyun felt relieved. That dragon claw fierce sun leopard was very cunning. It wasn't strange for it to hide. With the previous experience, Mo Qingyun's journey to the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace could be said to be unimpeded. Along the way, they didn't encounter any danger or disturb any brute demons. In just a little over 2 hours, they arrived at the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace. This is the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace. Looking at the huge palace floating in the air, Lei Muan's face was filled with shock. The 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace's aura was shocked. In response to Lei Muan's shock, Mo Qingyun shook his head with a faint smile and said, "Let's go in." After Mo Qingyun finished speaking, he led the way into the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace. Seeing that Mo Qingyun had entered the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace, Lei Muan and Huang Xiaolong hurried to catch up to him. "Young Palace Master, if there's nothing else, I'll head back first. Sister Mu Wan, if you're bored in the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace, you can come and find me anytime." Back in the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace, Yunluo called out and left. "Alright." Lei Muan nodded in response to Yunluo. After Yunluo left, Mo Qingyun continued forward, bringing Lei Muan to Consecration Mountain. Not long after, Mo Qingyun and Lei Muan arrived at Consecration Mountain. When Mo Qingyun arrived at Consecration Mountain, he saw Zhang Yi pacing back and forth outside his residence with an anxious look on his face. Seeing Zhang Yi's expression, Mo Qingyun revealed a curious look and asked him, "Senior Zhang Yi, what happened?" Hearing Mo Qingyun's question, Zhang Yi's expression tensed up and he said, "So it's consecrated Elder Mo. Thank you for your concern, but even if I told you about this matter, you wouldn't be able to help. You really can help me. Consecrated Elder Mo, you came back at the right time. Why didn't I think of asking you for help?" Seeing the huge change in Zhang Yi's attitude, Mo Qingyun was puzzled and asked, "Senior Zhang Yi, what exactly happened to you? Why don't you tell me about it? I was so happy that I forgot to tell you about it." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Zhang Yi slapped his head and said, "Actually, it's not a big deal. It's just a small formation exchange meeting. Some time ago, they sent me an invitation and I agreed to participate. At the time, I didn't think too much about it, but recently, I found out that an old friend of mine will also be participating. More importantly, 20 years ago, I made an agreement with that old friend to nurture a disciple that we were proud of. Now, 20 years have passed." Hearing Zhang Yi's words, Mo Qingyun more or less understood why Zhang Yi was having a headache. Not to mention nurturing a disciple that he was proud of, this fellow didn't even take in a proper disciple. If nothing unexpected happened, he would probably be teased by his old friend if he participated in the formation exchange meeting. At the same time, Mo Qingyun more or less understood why Zhang Yi had said that he could help. According to Zhang Yi's idea, he should let Mo Qingyun pretend to be his disciple and accompany him to participate in the formation exchange meeting. Mo Qingyun thought for a while and said with a helpless expression, "Senior Zhang Yi, I know what you mean, but I don't know much about the Heaven Realm's formations. Even if I go with you and act as your front, when the time comes, I will still lose face for you." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Zhang Yi shook his head and said, "Consecrator Mo, you don't know that your foundation in formations is very solid. As long as I give you some cramming, you will soon become a general-level divine array master. You have the strength of a general-level divine array master. Even if you lose the competition, you won't lose too badly." Hearing Zhang Yi's words, Mo Qingyun was speechless. After all this time, he would still lose. It's good to accompany Zhang Yi to have a look. I can gain some experience when I leave the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace in the future. Although somewhat speechless at Zhang Yi's idea, Mo Qingyun thought for a while and decided to agree to Zhang Yi's request. Firstly, after he agreed to Zhang Yi's request, Zhang Yi would take the initiative to teach him formations, which was something that ordinary people could not ask for. Secondly, now that Zhang Yi had taught him formations, it would be much easier for him to ask for advice in the future. When Mo Qingyun thought in this way, he nodded to Zhang Yi and said, "If that's the case, then I'll go with you. However, you can't blame me if I embarrass you." "I can't thank you enough. How can I blame you?" Hearing Mo Qingyun's agreement, Zhang Yi's face immediately lit up and he said, "Consecrator Mo, you are reliable. Much more reliable than those old guys." In his opinion, it was good that Mo Qingyun had agreed. As for Mo Qingyun's attainments in array formations and whether he won or lost in the array formation meeting, none of that mattered. "Senior Zhang Yi, when will we leave?" Since he had agreed to Zhang Yi's request, Mo Qingyun asked about the itinerary. After all, it was Lei Muwen's first time here and he had to help her settle down. Hearing Mo Qingyun's question, Zhang Yi thought for a while and said, "There are still 3 months before the Heavenly Pool formation trial opens. However, if we hurry along the way, it will take us at least 2 months. Therefore, we only have 1 month to prepare." "Alright, I understand." After knowing the time of the Heavenly Pool formation trial, Mo Qingyun nodded and said, "Senior Zhang Yi, I still have some matters to attend to, so I won't chat with you for the time being. Once I'm done with my matters, I'll come and talk to you in detail." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Zhang Yi nodded and did not say anything else to Mo Qingyun. Chapter 3180. After discussing with Zhang Yi, Mo Qingyun gestured to Lei Muwen and walked towards his residence. After returning to his residence, Mo Qingyun looked at Lei Muwen and said, "I'm going to look for Lu Fengyi and discuss some matters with him." "Okay." Lei Muwen nodded and walked towards a room to tidy it up. After leaving his residence, Mo Qingyun's footsteps did not stop as he went straight to Lu Fengyi's residence. "Venerable Mo, why have you come to look for me?" Lu Fengyi smiled faintly and greeted Mo Qingyun warmly when he saw Mo Qingyun arrive. Mo Qingyun nodded when he heard Lu Fengyi's question, He sat down beside Lu Fengyi and said, I have indeed come to look for Senior Lu for some matters. This time, I obtained a strange stone in an ancient site. I would like Senior Lu to take a look at it and see if it can be used to refine weapons. As Emo Qingyun spoke, he took out the strange stone and placed it in front of Lu Fengyi. Lu Fengyi was shocked when he saw the stone that Emo Qingyun had taken out. His eyes widened. Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat when he saw Lu Fengyi's reaction. His expression also became tense as he asked, Senior Lu, what's wrong with this stone? Do you know what kind of stone it is? Lu Fengyi was excited when he heard Emo Qingyun's question. He looked at Emo Qingyun enviously and said, Little friend Emo, you are really a person of great fortune. You even obtained the primordial heavenly replenishing rock. Your luck is really too good. Primordial heavenly replenishing rock? Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. He quickly understood and thought, could this primordial heavenly replenishing rock be used to repair the passage of the light gate at the bottom of the primordial sea? Emo Qingyun thought for a moment and felt that it was very possible. Emo Qingyun thought for a moment, then asked Lu Fengyi, Senior Lu, what is so special about the primordial heavenly rock? What is it usually used for? Upon hearing Emo Qingyun's question, Lu Fengyi thought for a while before replying, the primordial heavenly rock isn't particularly useful to us, but it's an incredible treasure to emperor gods and ultimate gods. The primordial chaos great Tao origin in your primordial heavenly replenishing rock has almost completely dissipated. Its value may be greatly reduced, but even so, it's still an extremely precious treasure in the eyes of god emperors and ultimate gods. After listening to Lu Fengyi's explanation, Emo Qingyun revealed a disappointed expression and lost interest in the Grand Mist Heaven Mending Stone. God emperors and ultimate gods were too far away for him. So it's useless. It seems like I can only give it to Big Brother Chu. Looking at the primordial heaven mending stone before him, Emo Qingyun shook his head as a plan formed in his mind. Upon hearing Emo Qingyun's words, Lu Fengyi smiled wryly and didn't know what to say. Even emperor gods and ultimate gods were tempted by it, but Emo Qingyun actually felt that it was useless and was prepared to give it away. However, after thinking about it carefully, he realized that Emo Qingyun's words were true. The primordial heavenly rock was indeed useless to him. Thank you, Senior Lu, for helping me identify this rock. Emo Qingyun made a decision in his heart. He didn't want to delay any longer and decided to look for Chu Jiangshao immediately. He said, I still have to look for Big Brother Chu. I won't disturb you for now. Lu Fengyi shook his head in response to Emo Qingyun's gratitude and said, You don't have to be so polite, Honorary Master Emo. The next time you encounter anything rare, you can come to me to identify it at any time. Okay. Emo Qingyun nodded. After leaving Lu Fengyi's residence, Emo Qingyun's footsteps didn't stop and directly left Honorary Mountain. Not long after, Emo Qingyun arrived outside Chu Jiangshao's courtyard. As soon as Emo Qingyun approached, Chu Jiangshao sensed him. He looked at Emo Qingyun in surprise and said, Little friend Emo, have you been exploring some mystic realm recently? What ancient secret treasure did you obtain? Hearing Chu Jiangshao's question, Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat, and his face was filled with astonishment. He didn't expect Chu Jiangshao to be able to sense this and was amazed by the Emperor God's methods. After a brief moment of surprise, Emo Qingyun didn't hide anything and nodded. He said, I won't hide it from Big Brother Chu. I have indeed been to an ancient mystic realm recently and obtained an unusual rock. Just now, I went to look for Honorary Master Lu Fengyi and asked him to help identify it. I found out that it would be helpful to you, so I brought it over. As Emo Qingyun spoke, he took out the primordial heavenly rock and placed it in front of Chu Jiangshao. Primordial heavenly rock. As soon as the primordial heavenly rock was taken out, Chu Jiangshao recognized it, and his face was filled with shock. He sensed that Emo Qingyun's aura was strange. He must have gone to some ancient mystic realm. However, he didn't expect Emo Qingyun to obtain the primordial heavenly rock in an ancient mystic realm. "Are you sure you want to give it to me?" Recalling Emo Qingyun's words, Chu Jiangxiao's face was filled with shock, and he found it difficult to calm down. Even with his mentality, it was difficult to remain calm in front of the primordial heavenly rock. "That's right." In response to Chu Jiangxiao's question, Emo Qingyun replied very calmly, "Honorary Master Lu Fengyi said just now that this thing is only useful to Emperor gods and ultimate gods. If I keep it, it will be a huge problem. With my cultivation level, it would be very dangerous for me to be targeted by god emperors and reverends. In that case, I might as well give it to you. If it is useful to you and makes you stronger, my backer in the heaven realm will become even stronger in the future." After listening to Emo Qingyun's explanation, Chu Jiangxiao couldn't help but be stunned. Then, he laughed heartily and said, "You are really not polite to me at all. However, since you have said so, I naturally can't let you down. This primordial heavenly rock is very useful to me. Perhaps it will allow my strength to rise to a new level. When the time comes, if you encounter any trouble in the heaven realm, use my name, Chu Jiangxiao. It should be of some use." Hearing Chu Jiangxiao's words, Emo Qingyun revealed a bright smile. He didn't care about losing the primordial heavenly rock. To him, the benefits that could be seen immediately were the real benefit. The primordial aura on your body is too strong. It will easily attract the attention of godly kings, emperor gods, and ultimate gods. I will help you dissolve it. After putting away the primordial heavenly rock, Chu Jiangxiao looked at Emo Qingyun and raised his hand to wave at Emo Qingyun. Hearing Chu Jiangxiao's words, Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. He suddenly thought of something. Previously, when he entered the primordial fog sea, he was immediately attacked by the underwater plant. Perhaps it had something to do with this. As soon as this thought came to mind, Emo Qingyun decided to leave Chu Jiangxiao's residence and go back to give it a try. If it was really as he thought, he could enter the primordial fog sea again and hunt underwater plants to increase his strength. At the same time, he also had to think of a way to dissolve the primordial aura on his body. Chapter 3181. Dispelling the primordial aura on Emo Qingyun's body, Chu Jiangxiao thought for a moment and started forming hand seals with both hands again. Under Chu Jiangxiao's quick hand seals, a crystal-shaped feather condensed in his palm. "I'm going into seclusion for a period of time. You probably won't be able to find me in a short time." After condensing the crystal feather, Chu Jiangxiao informed Emo Qingyun. Emo Qingyun handed the crystal feather over and said, "This is my source power of Great Tao. If you activate it, it will be able to unleash 3 attacks that are equivalent to the power of a supreme god king." Hearing Chu Jiangxiao's words, Emo Qingyun's expression was shocked, then he revealed a pleasantly surprised smile. With Chu Jiangxiao's great Tao origin protecting him, as long as he did not provoke a divine emperor powerhouse, there was basically no danger. "Many thanks, Big Brother Chu." After thanking Chu Jiangxiao, Emo Qingyun saw that he was preparing to go into seclusion and did not want to disturb him anymore. He said, "In that case, I'll go back first." And, regarding Emo Qingyun's farewell, Chu Jiangxiao did not urge him to stay and nodded indifferently. After that, Emo Qingyun left Chu Jiangxiao's residence and headed for the Mountain of Consecration. On the way back to Offering Mountain, Emo Qingyun's face was filled with a satisfied smile. Although he lost a piece of primordial heaven-mending stone, he resolved the primordial aura on his body and resolved a latent danger. In addition, he also obtained Chu Jiangxiao's great Tao origin and obtained a powerful life-saving method. No matter how this deal was calculated, it was not a loss for Emo Qingyun. Although the primordial heaven-mending stone was precious, it did not have much use to Mo Qingyun. He was still very far away from Divine Emperor and Divine Venerables. Most importantly, if Mo Qingyun wanted it, he could go to the bottom of the primordial heaven-mending sea to look for it. This was the reason why he took it out and dared to feel secure about it. Very soon, Mo Qingyun returned to his residence and saw Lei Muwen tidying up the courtyard. Seeing Lei Muwen's actions, Mo Qingyun discovered that the thoughts of women and men were very different. He had lived here for a period of time, but he had never thought about it. It's not a good idea to let Mu Wan handle these things. We have to find someone to replace her. Looking at the entire courtyard of Lei Muwen, Mo Qingyun's heart stirred. He had a plan and said, "It seems like there's a need to activate the gate of reincarnation and revive a few people to take charge of daily life." With this thought in mind, Mo Qingyun didn't want to waste any more time and went straight to his room. Following that, Mo Qingyun used the gate of reincarnation to revive a few female martial artists. "You guys, come with me." Looking at the female warriors in front of him, Mo Qingyun gave them some instructions and left the room. Seeing Mo Qingyun and the others come out, Lei Muwen's beautiful face changed slightly. She looked at Mo Qingyun with a puzzled gaze and said, "Qingyun, what are you planning to do by reviving them?" Hearing Lei Muwen's words, Mo Qingyun said, "I can't stay here forever. You're bored here alone, so I found a few people to accompany you. In addition, with the few of them here, you don't have to do anything yourself." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Lei Muwen nodded in understanding Mo Qingyun's meaning. At this moment, while Mo Qingyun and Lei Muwen were talking, Zhang Yi came to his residence. Seeing Zhang Yi come, Mo Qingyun immediately understood why Zhang Yi was looking for him. Then, Mo Qingyun looked at Lei Muwen and said, "In the near future, I will be consulting Zhang Yi about formations. If you need me for anything, you can find me at his place." "Okay." Lei Muwen nodded. Then, Mo Qingyun nodded at Zhang Yi and quickly walked towards him. Seeing that Mo Qingyun understood, Zhang Yi didn't say anything else and returned to his courtyard with Mo Qingyun. Then, Zhang Yi didn't say anything else and began to explain formations to Mo Qingyun. Zhang Yi's explanation was very detailed, from the simple to the complicated, Step by step, he explained to Mo Qingyun. After Zhang Yi's explanation, Mo Qingyun obtained an answer to some of the doubts in his heart. Then, Mo Qingyun nodded in understanding and said, "So fusing laws into formations is the key to setting up divine formations." Upon hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Zhang Yi asked curiously, "From the looks of it, you seem to have done this before?" "Yes." Mo Qingyun didn't hide anything in response to Zhang Yi's question. He directly nodded and said, "When I returned to the astral boundary some time ago, in order to increase the power of the protective formation of the sect, I tried to fuse the threads of laws into the divine formation. In the end, I succeeded." After hearing Mo Qingyun's explanation, Lei Muwen's eyes widened. He thought he had heard wrong. While Zhang Yi was shocked, Lei Muwen was also pleasantly surprised. He said, "I originally thought that it would be quite difficult for you to raise your attainments in formations to the general level in a month. Now it seems that I worried too much. How many times did you try to fuse the threads of laws into the divine formation?" Hearing Zhang Yi's question, Mo Qingyun didn't think too much and directly answered, "I don't remember the details. About 10,000 times." Mo Qingyun's answer directly stunned Zhang Yi. No matter how rich his imagination was, he absolutely couldn't believe that Mo Qingyun had tried more than 10,000 times. As if he didn't think Zhang Yi was surprised enough, Mo Qingyun thought for a moment and corrected him. "I didn't try more than 10,000 times. I successfully fused the threads of laws more than 10,000 times." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Zhang Yi's expression became even more shocked. Mo Qingyun had successfully fused the threads of laws more than 10,000 times. How many times did he have to try? Hearing this result, Zhang Yi was both shocked and pleasantly surprised. He said, "In this case, you will definitely be promoted to a General Realm Divine Formation Master within a month. That will be a sure thing." After praising Mo Qingyun for a while, Zhang Yi continued to explain the knowledge of formations to ease Mo Qingyun's worries. Then, with Zhang Yi's constant explanation, Mo Qingyun's understanding of formations began to deepen. In this way, in the following month, Mo Qingyun had been listening to Zhang Yi's explanation. As Zhang Yi had said, his attainments in formations had really reached the level of a General Realm Divine Formation Master. Since a month has passed, we should set off. Zhang Yi calculated the time and reminded Mo Qingyun that it was time to set off for the Jade Pool Tactical Deployment meeting. Hearing Zhang Yi's words, Mo Qingyun returned to his courtyard and prepared to explain to Lei Muan. After returning to his courtyard, Mo Qingyun found Lei Muan and said, "I'm going out with Exalted Elder Zhang Yi. I'm afraid I won't be able to return in a short period of time. If there's anything you need, you can discuss it with the other Exalted Elders or Yunluo." As Mo Qingyun spoke, he took out Chu Jiangxiao's Source of the Great Way and handed it to Lei Muan. He said, "This is Brother Chu's Source of the Great Way. Keep it well. When it is activated, it can deliver 3 attacks comparable to a top immortal king." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Lei Muan was surprised. She hesitated for a while before accepting it. Chapter 3182. After giving Chu Jiangxiao's Great Tao Origin to Lei Muan, Mo Qingyun left with Zhang Yi. After leaving the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace, Zhang Yi took out a flying boat, which was also at the Heavenly God grade. However, the grade of the array on this flying boat was obviously much higher than Mo Qingyun's flying boat. After taking out the flying boat, Mo Qingyun and Zhang Yi's figures moved and boarded the flying boat. Immediately, Zhang Yi controlled the flying boat and rushed towards the Jade Lake Divine Prefecture. Under Zhang Yi's control, the flying boat immediately exploded with astonishing speed, which was at least 3 times faster than Mo Qingyun's flying boat. What a fast speed! Seeing the flying boat's speed, Mo Qingyun was shocked and said, "I didn't expect it to take 2 months to reach the Jade Lake Divine Prefecture with this speed." In the entire Heaven Realm, there were 15 divine prefectures, and in each divine prefecture, there were several divine prefectures. They were now in the Sky Demon Divine Prefecture's Sky Demon Mountain Range, which was connected to the Jade Lake Divine Prefecture. In this way, how far would Mo Qingyun need to go to the Profound Sky Divine Prefecture? Just the distance between 2 prefectures in the Sky Demon Divine Prefecture. It would take 2 months to drive a Heavenly God grade flying boat. If Mo Qingyun wanted to cross a region, or even several regions, to reach the Profound Sky Divine Prefecture, it would take a lot of time. It seems that I was too naive before. Without a Heavenly God cultivation base, it would be difficult to reach the Profound Sky Divine Prefecture. After coming out with Zhang Yi, Mo Qingyun realized that he knew too little about the Heaven Realm. Seeing Zhang Yi controlling the flying boat, Mo Qingyun began to study array formations, wanting to consolidate his understanding of array formations. Seeing Mo Qingyun's actions, Zhang Yi nodded approvingly. He appreciated Mo Qingyun's diligent actions very much. Seeing Mo Qingyun studying array formations, Zhang Yi did not disturb him and focused on controlling the flying boat. Controlling the flying boat to travel was undoubtedly very boring. Fortunately, when Mo Qingyun was studying formations, he would occasionally come to Zhang Yi for advice when he encountered doubts and questions. Due to Mo Qingyun's advice and inquiries, Zhang Yi's journey on the flying boat became less boring. 2 months passed quickly. After traveling for 2 months, Zhang Yi and Mo Qingyun finally arrived at the location where the array formation meeting was being held. After these 2 studies, Mo Qingyun's understanding of divine arrays had reached a new level. Compared to 2 months ago, there was a world of difference. After disembarking from the flying boat, Mo Qingyun saw a valley. It was like a paradise, quiet, elegant, and celestial. This is the Forget Worries Valley, the place where the Array Formation meeting will be held. Standing outside the valley, Zhang Yi made the introductions before walking into the valley. When Mo Qingyun heard Zhang Yi's words, he did not think too much and followed him in. When Mo Qingyun arrived at the Forget Worries Valley, he discovered that the space inside was very big. It seemed like a high-level spatial array had been set up. Is there a spatial array set up here? Mo Qingyun asked Zhang Yi curiously as they walked into the Forget Worries Valley. When he heard Mo Qingyun's question, Zhang Yi shook his head and said, "No, there is a natural spatial array in the Forget Worries Valley. To be precise, it is not a spatial array. It should be a very strange situation caused by the power of the origin source Great Path. In short, it is very mysterious and cannot be explained clearly." Zhang Yi's explanation made Mo Qingyun even more confused. His heart was even more puzzled. Seeing that he could not help but understand, Mo Qingyun stopped thinking about it and followed Zhang Yi into the Forget Worries Valley. The deeper he went into the carefree Divine Valley, the more Mo Qingyun realized that staying in this valley would make one unwilling to think about anything. It really is the Forget Worries Valley. It really is wondrous. Mo Qingyun could not help but sigh after discovering the wonders of the Forget Worries Valley. As Mo Qingyun looked around curiously, Zhang Yi saw his good friend. It was a short, fat, and kind middle-aged man. Zhang Yi's old friend came before Zhang Yi and teased him with a faint smile. "Zhang Yi, you've only come now. Are you afraid of losing to me, so you've been hiding all this time?" Zhang Yi chuckled and said, "Wang Jiang, we haven't seen each other for so many years, but you're still the same as before. You have no self-awareness at all. Do you think I would lose to you in a bet? Even if I wanted to, my disciple wouldn't. This is my disciple, Mo Qingyun. What do you think? He's much stronger than your disciple, right? It's not too late for you to give up and admit defeat now." The young man behind Wang Jiang curled his lips and said disdainfully, "I wonder who found this brat. I wonder if he has even become a soldier-level divine array master. To think that he dares to boast so shamelessly here. Let's see if you'll still have the face to show off in front of my master after I defeat him." Wang Jiang pretended to be unhappy when he saw his disciple's behavior. He scolded, "Chen Yuan, don't be rude. Come and greet your martial uncle Zhang Yi." Hearing Wang Jiang's instructions, Chen Yuan walked over reluctantly and said, "Junior Chen Yuan greets martial uncle Zhang." As for Mo Qingyun, Chen Yuan completely ignored him. He did not even glance at Mo Qingyun. Wang Jiang felt somewhat helpless when he saw Chen Yuan's actions. He said, "Martial nephew, Chen Yuan is just like that. I hope you don't mind him." "Martial Uncle Wang, you're too serious. I won't bicker with a junior." Mo Qingyun smiled nonchalantly at Wang Jiang's apology and glanced at Chen Yuan. Chen Yuan was immediately displeased when he heard Mo Qingyun's way of addressing him. Mo Qingyun had actually called him a junior. This was simply an insult to him. "Kid, it seems that if I don't teach you a lesson, you'll—" When Chen Yuan thought of this, his face was filled with anger and he wanted to attack Mo Qingyun. However, when he saw Mo Qingyun's nomological law thread, he was dumbfounded. Mo Qingyun's nomological law thread was actually as thick as a calf and 100 meters long. This was simply too ferocious. After taking out the nomological law thread, Mo Qingyun looked at Chen Yuan and said with a smile, "What did you just say? What did you want to show me?" Hearing Mo Qingyun's question, Chen Yuan's expression became gloomy and his entire face tensed up. When Wang Jiang saw Mo Qingyun's actions, he smiled helplessly. He knew that Mo Qingyun was not a good person either. Zhang Yi shook his head when he saw Mo Qingyun's actions. He said, You can't casually fight in the carefree Divine Valley. Put away your nomological law thread. Don't scare your martial nephew. Wang Jiang's expression became even more gloomy when he heard Zhang Yi's words. This pair of master and disciple were sincere. They were deliberately taking advantage of the two of them. Hearing Zhang Yi's request, Emo Qingyun nodded and put away the law thread. Chapter 3183. Zhang Yi, where did you find such a little monster? Wang Jiang's face was filled with shock when he saw Emo Qingyun's nomological threads. It was as if he had discovered a new continent. Wang Jiang's shocked expression made Zhang Yi secretly pleased. He said, "What do you mean, where did you find him?" "I, Zhang Yi, have painstakingly nurtured him." Wang Jiang looked at Zhang Yi with disdain. "You nurtured him? You're misleading him. He's so talented in cultivation. You've abducted him to study formations. Aren't you black-hearted?" Zhang Yi was at a loss for words after Wang Jiang's fierce rebuke. He had to admit that what Wang Jiang said was very reasonable. Emo Qingyun really shouldn't study formations. As Zhang Yi thought about this, he suddenly remembered that Emo Qingyun had not come to study array formations. He had only come to go through the motions. Why do you care? Emo Qingyun is my disciple. I can teach him however I want. Zhang Yi snapped back to his senses and retorted Wang Jiang. He looked at Chun Yuan and said, "If you're capable, you should also nurture your disciple like Qingyun." Wang Jiang sensibly stopped talking when he saw that Zhang Yi was about to flip out. He said, "Zhang Yi, I'm afraid there will be some changes to the bet between the two of you." "What do you mean?" Zhang Yi asked curiously. He then said, "Tell me, how do you want to change the rules?" "It's not about changing the rules." Wang Jiang shook his head. He put on a mysterious smile and said, "When I first arrived at Carefree Valley, the Valley Master announced something. He's going to hold a sparring match between the younger generation at the Formations meeting this time. He's also set up a generous reward. Especially the reward for the first place. Do you know what it is?" Zhang Yi shook his head and said, "What is it?" "The fate-defying carefree fruit," Wang Jiang said excitedly. He then said, "You didn't expect it, right? The Valley Master actually took out the fate-defying carefree fruit. Don't you think we should change the rules?" "Indeed, it should be changed." Hearing Wang Jiang's question, Zhang Yi nodded solemnly. Then, he revealed a puzzled expression and said, "Doesn't the fate-defying Forgotten Valley only bear fruit once every 10 million years? How could the Valley Master be willing to take it out as a prize?" In response to Zhang Yi's question, Wang Jiang glared at him and said, "How would I know? In any case, just take it out as a prize. Why do you care so much?" Hearing Wang Jiang's words, Zhang Yi didn't say anything else. Listening to the two's conversation, Emo Qingyun asked curiously, "Martial Uncle Wang, what exactly is this life-defying worryless fruit that you're talking about? What special uses does it have?" Upon hearing Emo Qingyun's question, Wang Jiang did not try to hide anything. He said, "After consuming the fate-defying worryless fruit, the effect is the exact opposite of that of the worryless fruit. It can bring back all the worries and sorrowful memories that you have forgotten. Most importantly, it's the main ingredient in refining the heaven-defying reincarnation pill. It can help the remnant souls that have dissipated come back to life. There are also some experts whose clones have dissipated for some reason. It can be used to bring them back." After hearing Wang Jiang's explanation, Emo Qingyun's heart skipped a beat. A look of anticipation and determination flashed through his eyes. He thought, "If I can refine the heaven-defying reincarnation pill, will I be able to find Han Yen?" At that moment, Emo Qingyun felt a strong sense of anticipation. In his opinion, he seemed to have a clear direction in finding Long Han Yen. He had to obtain first place in this gathering of formations. As the two of them chatted as they walked, they arrived at a large hall and found a place to sit down. When Emo Chinyun entered the hall, he saw many people sitting there and chatting with each other about their experiences in formations. Although Emo Chinyun didn't join in the conversation, he still benefited a lot from listening to them. Although he was unable to fully comprehend some of the knowledge regarding formations, it still broadened his horizons. Many methods of setting up formations that he had never thought of before were given examples by these people. While everyone was chatting, a group of people arrived at the top of the hall. When they saw these people arrive, the people who hadn't talked to each other stopped talking. When the hall returned to silence, the old man leading the group said, "I'm sure everyone knows about the competition between the juniors at this gathering of formations. I still have to repeat it here in case anyone is late and doesn't understand the situation. The competition for this gathering of formations is very simple. Send the juniors into the 10,000 formation sea. Whoever manages to snatch the most powerful formations within the stipulated time will be the winner. The duration of the assessment is 3 days. During the assessment period, you are not allowed to deliberately kill others." After listening to the Valley Master's explanation, some people who did not know about the situation understood. This competition is very challenging and flexible. The assessment is very comprehensive. After listening to the Valley Master's explanation, Emo Chingyun's heart skipped a beat. He had a rough idea of the assessment. It was to throw everyone into a world of formations and see who could control the most powerful formations in the shortest time possible. "All of you, come with me." After the Valley Master finished speaking, he no longer hesitated and walked out. Hearing the Valley Master's words, everyone followed closely behind him and followed him to an open area. At this moment, there were many formations set up in this open space. At first glance, it really looked like an ocean. Upon closer inspection, one would realize that there were more than 10,000 formations. Those formations overlapped, combined and entangled with each other. It was difficult to tell how many there were. When they arrived outside the ocean of formations, the Valley Master gestured to the elders beside him and said, "Open the ocean of formations and let the juniors who are participating in the assessment in." Upon hearing the Valley Master's words, the elders of the Daylily Valley immediately responded and opened the ocean of formations. Seeing that the ocean of formations was opened, the Valley Master said, "The assessment will only last for 10 days. After 10 days we will check your assessment result. Everyone, go in." After the Valley Master finished speaking, the juniors who were participating in the gathering of formations flew into the ocean of formations. Judging from their expressions, it was as if they were one step late and others would take the initiative. Humph! Seeing that everyone had entered, Chen Yuan snorted coldly at Emo Chinyun and flew into the ocean of formations. Seeing Chen Yuan's actions, Emo Chinyun did not mind and said, "I'm going in." After saying that, Emo Chinyun's figure flashed and he directly passed Chen Yuan and entered the ocean of formations before him. When Emo Chinyun arrived in the ocean of formations, he fell into one of the formations and was attacked by the formation. This formation was a little strange. Although it was a divine formation, it did not integrate the nomological thread. Therefore, it was not very powerful and could not cause any harm to Emo Chinyun. Immediately, Emo Chinyun endured the formation's attack and began to think of a way to control the formation. Chapter 3184. Emo Chinyun's physique was strong and could withstand the attacks of the formation. Chen Yuan and the others were in a more miserable state. They entered the sea of formations, and as soon as they accidentally entered some of the formations, they were bombarded by the formations until they were dizzy. They would never have thought that the assessment array formation in the array formation ocean was actually not in a closed state. These formations were all open, and it was much harder to refine and control them. Some of the weaker ones were directly blasted away by the attack of the array. In just a few breaths' time, dozens of people were eliminated. Moreover, the number was still rising. Looking at the situation in the sea of formations, Wang Jiang was shocked and said, "These juniors were too careless. They thought the test was too simple and became passive all of a sudden." "That's right." Zhang Yi nodded and said, "The reward this time is the fate-defying worryless fruit. How can the test be so easy?" While Zhang Yi was speaking, Wang Jiang discovered something shocking. He exclaimed, "That disciple of yours is actually not afraid of the formation's attack. What a terrifying body! Even if I were to compare myself to him, I'm afraid I'm still a level lower." Hearing Wang Jiang's words, a look of shock appeared on Zhang Yi's face, and his emotions rippled. However, Zhang Yi quickly calmed down and smiled proudly. "Of course. Don't you know who nurtured his disciple? He is naturally not someone who can compare to him. Get lost." Hearing Zhang Yi's words, Wang Jiang glared at him and said, "Don't think that I can't tell that kid is not your disciple. With your weak physique, how can you nurture such a monstrous disciple? Hand over the truth. Where did you find this kid? Although this kid is not your disciple, I am very impressed that you were able to find him." Hearing Wang Jiang's words, Zhang Yi smiled proudly again and said, "His identity is not simple. In the future, there might be a place for him in the heaven domain." Zhang Yi's words made Wang Jiang even more curious about Emo Qingyun's identity. He said, "If you have something to say it quickly. Don't beat around the bush." Zhang Yi nodded and said, "I am not very clear about his specific origin. He seems to be from a low-level cultivation world. I don't know what kind of coincidence happened, but he got acquainted with our palace master and even gained her favor. Originally, the palace master wanted to groom him to be the successor, but for some unknown reason, he became a consecrator of the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace. I saw that he was interested in formations, so I chatted with him a few times. Slowly, we became familiar with each other." Listening to Zhang Yi's story, Wang Jiang's expression changed. He was amazed at Emo Qingyun's luck. The palace master of the 10,000 Demon Emperor Palace, Chu Jiangshao, had quite a reputation in the entire heaven realm. For Emo Qingyun to be acquainted with him and be valued by him, this kind of luck could be said to be heaven-defying. Of course, Emo Qingyun's talent was also very strong. Now that he knew Emo Qingyun's identity, Wang Jiang asked curiously, looking at him, "He seems to be a junior of the wisdom demon lineage. He should not have taken human form for long. Among the demon clan, even a little demon who has not taken human form would be interested in studying formations?" The more Wang Jiang thought about it, the more his head hurt. "About this, I am not very clear." Hearing Wang Jiang mention this, Zhang Yi also had a look of disbelief. He said, "You might not believe me if I tell you, but the first time this kid came to me for guidance on formations, I only briefly explained it, and he immediately understood it. The second time he came to me for guidance on formations, he actually relied on his own inference to integrate the threads of law into a low-level formation, creating the feeling of a pseudo-divine formation. Later, it took him a month to advance to the general-level divine formation master." Listening to Zhang Yi's story, Wang Jiang was so shocked that his mouth opened wide. He said in surprise, "Monster, this kid is too monster. His talent in formations is actually so terrifying." Immediately, the way Wang Jiang looked at Emo Qingyun changed greatly. In just a month, Emo Qingyun's attainments in formations had reached the general-level divine formation master. This was really too terrifying. He had taught Chen Yuan for nearly 30 years, and Chen Yuan had only just reached the general-level divine formation master level because he had a certain foundation. As a result, the gap between Emo Qingyun and Chen Yuan had grown to such an extent. This time, I accept my defeat wholeheartedly. Thinking of the gap between Emo Qingyun and Chen Yuan, Wang Jiang could not help but sigh. He was somewhat envious of Zhang Yi. It was not that Zhang Yi had accepted Mo Qingyun as his disciple, but that he had become acquainted with Mo Qingyun. While Wang Jiang was sighing in his heart, he also secretly made a decision. He thought to himself, when the competition is over, I should teach Chen Yuan a lesson and make him be more polite to Mo Qingyun. Zhang Yi did not care about Wang Jiang's admission of defeat. He smiled and said, Our competition this time was not completed perfectly because of the Carefree Valley Lord, so this time does not count. Let's do it again. Next time, I will definitely accept a disciple personally and have a good competition with you. Hearing Zhang Yi's suggestion, Wang Jiang was overjoyed and immediately nodded in agreement. The two of them talked for a while, then their attention returned to the Sea of Formations. At the moment, the situation in the Sea of Formations had basically stabilized. There were no longer large groups of people being eliminated. The juniors participating in the assessment had basically stabilized their positions and started to refine and control the formations. Wang Jiang's disciple, Chen Yuan, had also stabilized a formation and started to refine it. Compared to the speed of Chen Yuan and the others, Mo Qingyun's control speed could be said to be extremely fast. Now, the number of formations that Mo Qingyun controlled had already reached as many as 3. Not only that, but the formations that Mo Qingyun controlled had also integrated nomological thread. It was not just a simple control of power. The reason why Mo Qingyun had integrated nomological threads so quickly was also due to the experience of integrating tens of thousands of nomological threads in the celestial boundary. Others might have integrated nomological threads as many times as he had, but the situation when those people had integrated nomological threads was very different from what it was now. They had integrated nomological threads as they set up, unlike now when they had finished setting up and integrated nomological threads. Therefore, it was very difficult for them to integrate nomological threads, and their efficiency was greatly reduced. Mo Qingyun was the opposite of them. He wanted to integrate nomological threads into the formations after the formations were set up. Therefore, he did not feel the slightest discomfort when integrating nomological threads now. Soon, another array formation was under Mo Qingyun's control, and he successfully integrated the nomological threads into it. Immediately, Mo Qingyun began to look for new formations to refine and integrate nomological threads into. However, when Mo Qingyun swept his gaze over, he discovered that the formations around him had actually been occupied by others. In this way, he had no more formations to refine. This was not something he could accept. Since the formations had been occupied by others, he could only make a move to snatch them. End of chapter. Chapter 3185. Go somewhere else and refine the formation. I'll take over the formation here. Mo Qingyun's gaze swept across the surroundings. His gaze landed on one person as he berated him coldly. The person was immediately displeased when he heard Mo Qingyun's words. He raised his head haughtily and said, You want me to give up this place and the surrounding formation with just one sentence? Impossible. Without waiting for the other party to finish speaking, Mo Qingyun's figure flashed and rushed into his array formation. The person's expression changed drastically when he saw Mo Qingyun's actions. He immediately activated the formation and shouted, Since you insist on dying, I'll fulfill your wish. With a single thought, the array formation he controlled was activated. Immediately, violent bolts of lightning blasted towards Mo Qingyun. What made the person vomit blood was that the lightning had no effect at all on Mo Qingyun's body. How is this possible? How can his body be so strong? The person's face was filled with shock when he saw Mo Qingyun's performance. A strong sense of lingering fear welled up in him. The formation that had almost killed him was unable to harm Mo Qingyun at all when it landed on Mo Qingyun's body. How was he supposed to fight Mo Qingyun now? How was he supposed to compete with Mo Qingyun for the formation? I admit defeat. I'll go somewhere else immediately. The person was terrified when he saw Mo Qingyun's freakish strength. He was prepared to go somewhere else to refine the formation. However, what he hadn't expected was that Mo Qingyun wouldn't pay any attention to his pleas. Mo Qingyun's figure flashed, and he appeared beside Yi Futian. He threw a punch at Yi Futian and said, "It's too late to change places now. Get out of the Matrix Ocean." As soon as Mo Qingyun finished speaking, his fist landed on the person's body and blasted him out of the sea of formations. Seeing Mo Qingyun's domineering behavior, the people around him immediately left on their own accord. They could all tell that Mo Qingyun was a ruthless person. He wasn't someone they could afford to offend. To prevent Mo Qingyun from stealing the formation, it was best for them to leave on their own accord. They had only made about 20% progress in refining the formation. It wouldn't be a pity if they gave up. However, if they finished refining it and let Mo Qingyun steal it, that would be too much of a pity. You're quite sensible. Seeing that everyone had left, Mo Qingyun smiled in satisfaction. He didn't pay them any more attention. The fact that they left on their own accord saved him a lot of trouble. After driving away the nearby people, Mo Qingyun did not waste any more time. He continued to refine and control the nearby spirit array. Mo Qingyun didn't pay attention to the people around him, but when he chased them away, his actions attracted the attention of others. This brat is so strong. He actually chased away all the people around him. His refining speed is so fast. He actually refined 4 formations. He's a powerful opponent. We have to pay close attention. Some people took a look at Mo Qingyun and remembered him. They treated him as a strong competitor. Chen Yuan was stunned when he saw Mo Qingyun's performance. His eyes opened wide as he exclaimed, "No, this is impossible. How can his refining speed be so fast?" Getting such a situation, Chen Yuan's gaze when looking at Mo Qingyun no longer had the slightest bit of contempt. Not only did he no longer look down on or belittle, but he also felt a little guilty and inferior in front of Mo Qingyun. Mo Qingyun's refining speed of the formation was enough to make him feel admiration. Chen Yuan took a deep breath and calmed the emotions in his heart. He continued to refine the formation around him. Mo Qingyun was too monstrous. He couldn't compare to Mo Qingyun. He could only compare to ordinary people. Seeing Chen Yuan's performance, Zhang Yi smiled faintly and said, "Your disciple is not bad." He was dealt a blow by Consecrator Mo, but he recovered quickly. To him, this might be a good thing, allowing him to put away his arrogance and conceit. This way, he might be able to go further in his cultivation path in the future. Wang Jiang nodded and said, "This kid is just a little arrogant. His talent is still not bad. He's stronger than all of you." Now that his arrogance has been worn away by little friend Mo, as long as he continues to maintain it, his future achievements will be above yours and mine. Zhang Yi nodded and didn't say anything. His gaze was fixed on Mo Qingyun. The shock in his eyes grew stronger. This was because he realized that Mo Qingyun's speed of refining the formation and integrating the nomological threads into the formation was rapidly increasing. This speed of improvement was rather terrifying. In the following time, everyone spent refining and controlling the formation. As everyone continued to refine, the formation in the formation ocean began to run out. As the formation became insufficient, the phenomenon of forcefully seizing the formation began to become more and more frequent. At this time, Chen Yuan met someone who came to snatch his formation. Seeing that the other party was snatching the formation, Chen Yuan immediately shouted, "Ma Ya, don't go too far. If you don't stop, do you believe that I will destroy the formation?" Ma Ya ignored Chen Yuan's warning and continued to refine Chen Yuan's formation, fighting with Chen Yuan for control of the formation. Seeing Ma Ya's actions, Chen Yuan was so angry that his face turned green. However, he couldn't bear to destroy the formation. This was because several of his formations were connected. If this formation was destroyed, the others would be destroyed as well. In his opinion, losing one formation wasn't a big deal. If all of them were destroyed, his test would be over. Immediately, Chen Yuan refined the formation with all his strength, wanting to be in a stalemate with Maya. Want to fight me with the likes of you? Too inexperienced. Seeing Chen Yuan's actions, Ma Ling chuckled. His refining speed became even faster. Slowly, Chen Yuan's control of the formation was snatched away by Maya. You consider yourself ruthless. Chen Yuan had no choice but to give up on this formation and guard the other few formations. It was just that what Chen Yuan did not expect was that after Maya refined this formation, he actually did not stop and continued to fight for his other formations. You're going too far. Seeing Maya's actions, Chen Yuan was thoroughly enraged. The other party was seriously too much. This meant that they didn't even want to leave a single formation for him. A soft persimmon, of course I have to need you casually. If you can destroy the formation, consider it my loss. Towards Chen Yuan's anger, Maya smiled contemptuously again, his eyes filled with a look of mockery. Now that the formation was refined, wanting to continue refining the formation, one could only go and snatch others. But snatching other people's formations, powerful people naturally could not touch them. However, a weakling like Chen Yuan naturally couldn't be let off. Just as Chen Yuan was at his wit's end, Mo Qingyun looked over and shouted at Maya, "Hey, enough is enough. Always leave some for others." Hearing Mo Qingyun's words, Maya's expression froze slightly. A look of hesitation appeared on his face. He had just witnessed Mo Qingyun's strength. He was not a master to be trifled with. End of chapter. Chapter 3186. Since you've spoken, I naturally have to give you face. Maya thought for a moment, then began to retreat and leave Chen Yuan's array formation. The strength that Mo Qingyun had just displayed was really too strong. It was not on the same level as him at all. It was not worth offending Mo Qingyun for Chen Yuan's array formation. If he provoked Mo Qingyun, it would not be just an array formation. He would also have to pay for it. Seeing that Maya had retreated, Chen Yuan's expression relaxed, and his hanging heart was slightly relieved. For now, it seemed that his array formation was saved. Seeing that Mo Qingyun had helped to protect his array formation, Chen Yuan's expression became a little complicated. He had treated Mo Qingyun like that before, and now Mo Qingyun was treating him like this. This really made him feel ashamed. Mr. Mo, looking at Mo Qingyun, who was not far away, Chen Yuan's expression was complicated. He was about to open his mouth to express his gratitude. However, before he could finish speaking, Mo Qingyun raised his hand and interrupted him, saying, "All right, guard the array formation with peace of mind. Don't lose it again." "Okay." Chen Yuan nodded and did not say anything else. Seeing that Maya had retreated, Mo Qingyun did not stop Chen Yuan and continued to refine and control the array formation around him. Mo Qingyun refined the array formation very quickly and integrated the nomological threads into it. It did not take long for him to control the array formation. Due to the powerful strength that Mo Qingyun had displayed, some people near him had distanced themselves from him. Since Mo Qingyun was refining the array, the people in front of him consciously made way, not daring to refine the array formation in front of Mo Qingyun. This was because they knew that refining the array formation in front of Mo Qingyun was equivalent to doing useless work. Once Mo Qingyun got close, if they could not resist him, they could only let Missouri Qingyun drive him out. Time passed bit by bit. As time passed, the competition for the array formation became more and more intense, and more people were eliminated. "Brat, I heard that you're very arrogant. No one nearby dares to provoke you. Mo Qingyun refined a formation, and when he was about to refine the next one, a person blocked his path, saying, I, Tang Xian, am not someone who fears death. If you want me to hand over the formations, you'll have to defeat me first. When he saw the other party's actions, Mo Qingyun smiled faintly and said, It's boring to keep refining formations. It's not a bad choice to use you as a warm-up. As soon as Mo Qingyun finished speaking, his figure flashed and directly passed through the array. Sky-shattering Tyrannosaurus fist. Mo Qingyun didn't show any mercy when he arrived at his opponent's side. He immediately threw a punch at him. In the face of Mo Qingyun's attack, Tang Xian's expression trembled, her eyes filled with intense shock. The strength that Mo Qingyun possessed was completely beyond his understanding. How is this possible? Sensing Mo Qingyun's aura, Tang Xian's expression tensed up, saying, He's only at the advanced stage of the heavenly soldier realm. How can his strength be comparable to a heavenly general realm powerhouse? While Tang Xian was still in shock, Mo Qingyun's fist arrived in front of him. In the face of Mo Qingyun's swift attack, Tang Xian didn't dare be careless in the slightest. He immediately raised his hand to block. Bang! Mo Qingyun's fist slammed into Tang Xian's arm, and a terrifying force erupted. Under this force, Tang Xian was directly sent flying, crashing into the array's light screen. Immediately, the aura that Tang Xian exuded rapidly weakened. I admit defeat. After exchanging a single blow with Mo Qingyun, Tang Xian understood the difference in strength and immediately admitted defeat to Mo Qingyun, saying, I'll let you have this array. I'll withdraw my control over it right now. As soon as Tang Xian finished speaking, he prepared to turn around and leave, no longer contending with Mo Qingyun. However, just as Tang Xian was about to leave, Mo Qingyun shook his head with a faint smile. You're only saying that you'll let me have the array because you can't beat me. There's no such thing as that. It's not just this array that I want. I want all your other arrays as well. Tang Xian's face trembled when he heard Mo Qingyun's request. Rage filled his face as he said, Don't go too far. If you force me into a corner, I'll detonate all the arrays. Mo Qingyun smiled nonchalantly when he saw Tang Xian's actions. He said, If you have the ability, go ahead and detonate all the arrays. Let's see if you can do it before I do. As soon as Mo Qingyun finished speaking, his figure flashed as he continued to attack Tang Xian. Before Tang Xian could react, Mo Qingyun arrived before him and threw a punch at him again. Tang Xian was unable to block Mo Qingyun's punch even when he was at his peak, let alone now. Bang! Tang Xian was sent flying again by Mo Qingyun's punch. He slammed into the array's barrier of light. Following that, the aura he emitted became even weaker. Seeing such a result, Tang Xian revealed a bitter expression, her entire face drooping. If he had known that this would happen, he would not have provoked Mo Qingyun. He would have given up the array on his own accord. If he had done that, he would have only lost a single array. He would have been able to keep the others. However, he could not keep any of them now. He was about to be eliminated from the test. Mo Qingyun smiled faintly when he saw the bitter expression on Tang Xian's face. He said, How about I make a deal with you? What deal? In Tang Xian's opinion, Mo Qingyun was probably saying this because he did not want to occupy all of his arrays. However, when he heard Mo Qingyun's words, he was completely dumbfounded. Mo Qingyun smiled faintly as he gazed at Tang Xian. If I were to injure you, wouldn't you have to purchase medicinal pills to heal your injuries? Besides that, it would delay your cultivation. You'll suffer a huge loss if that were to happen. How about this? I won't attack you now. I'll let you leave the array ocean. You give me 1,000,000 heaven crystals. Tang Xian was completely dumbfounded when he heard Mo Qingyun's words. Was this even possible? After a brief moment of shock, Tang Xian revealed an angry expression. He said, Brat, Although you're stronger than me, there are hundreds and thousands of seniors here who are stronger than you. Have you considered the consequences of doing this? Emo Qingyun shook his head at Tang Xian's question. He said, "It looks like you're not willing to cooperate. I won't be courteous to you then." As soon as Emo Qingyun finished speaking, his figure flashed and he once again attacked Tang Xian domineeringly. Soon after, a series of miserable shrieks came from Tang Xian's mouth. Seeing Tang Xian's miserable state, the surrounding people all revealed sympathetic expressions. They all sighed deeply. Just how sinful was this fellow to actually be beaten up so ruthlessly? A moment later, Tang Xian was completely terrified. He said, I'll give you heaven crystals, okay?" Hearing Tang Xian's words, Emo Qingyun nodded in satisfaction. That was more like it. Before long, Emo Qingyun obtained 1,000,000 heaven crystals from Tang Xian. As for Tang Xian, he was sent flying by Emo Qingyun with a kick. He was sent flying out of the Array Ocean. Seeing Emo Qingyun's actions, the surrounding people were dumbfounded. Was it okay to do that? You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.